Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Jeff, I've
Mine
worked
still
out.
says
Jeff.
off air.
No, it's fine. It says live.
live.
Here.
Okay.
Live now.
Yeah.
I don't know
Oh, there it
whether it's referring to me or Jeff or what. Jeff, I worked out why you hand fly the Mad Dog so much.
Why is that?
Well, someone gave me your autopilot switch. Can you see it there?
I can. What?
Okay, watch
Okay.
this.
What is coming out of that? I can't.
It's a little finger. And every time I move the switch, this little finger pops out the box and turns it off again.
Oh, okay.
So I've decided that must be.
I got it. It's happening like the video doesn't quite.
It is
thought it was
happening
like
quite
grabbing
quick,
something. Okay.
So I reckon that must be the Mad Dog autopilot switch.
That's me. Anytime someone tries to put the autopilot on,
Just
Flick it up.
That's not true. Where'd you get that?
I've been tinkering at Amazon, of course. I love Amazon.
Amazon is a wonderful place.
I sent you a little slow-mo video of it on message, but it was when I was out walking the dog, so it may not have come across.
Oh, perhaps I just didn't go back to see. I don't see anything. Yeah, whatever. So hello, everybody in the chat room. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We should start the show very soon because we have a lot of stuff to cover. And of course, we're never going to get to all of it, but we're eager to hear, not anxious, unless people get anxiety from hearing what we were doing in the last week. But we're eager to hear about Dana's adventure and the San Francisco meetup with Captain Nick. And I had a meetup in Louisville, so we're going to be talking about all that stuff at the beginning of the show. And let's see. Let me get to my Evernote folder here. Does everything sound okay to everybody in the chat room?
It's all gone quiet.
Yeah, I think Steph must have muted because I was used to hearing all that.
Well, I saw everyone else muted themselves too. I didn't.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it got really
I'm just
nice.
acutely aware of
It got
how
really
loud
nice and quiet.
these things were there. Yeah.
Okay, because I was on a different window and I'm thinking, I hope that I just didn't lose the entire hangout. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Okay, let me do this. I'll do a sound check here. No, I do that every time. I know, it's too loud. Volume. Bring that volume down, Jeff.
Flight 209, you are clear for takeoff. Roger.
All right, and we're 285. Airline Pilot Guy, episode. No, hang on a second. Are we recording? At least I remembered it this time. Okay, we are recording on Audition. I don't have a backup going, so hopefully anybody out there live right now, start your backup recordings. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 285.
Flight 209, you are clear for takeoff. Roger.
Hello, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our kite in the sky.
Our kind of cockpit.
Our kind of. It's going to be one of these days, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take 3.
Didn't do it. I swear, I didn't do it.
No, it wasn't your fault. My fault. Okay. Let's go mute again. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 285.
Flight 209, you are clear for takeoff. Roger.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters building in Roswell, Georgia. In today's episode, lots of aviation news, your feedback, and the latest Plain Tales installment, No Distant Lands. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 285 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. I'm Captain Jeff, a captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier. And we do this little show. I fly for Acme Airlines, I say, because I don't want to divulge the actual airline for which I fly. And that goes for everybody else here on the show as well. Not that we'd say anything wrong, but, we just got to be careful. And joining me today from Charlotte, North Carolina, we have
Doctor?
a physiatrist,
Doctor?
a marathon runner, a skydiver, a commercial multi-engine instrument rated pilot, Dr. Steph.
Hello, Captain Jeff. And
Hello.
yes, I am live on location in the South End area of Charlotte this afternoon. Well, that just got really loud.
Sorry.
But sorry. And unfortunately, this is going to be a rather short show for me. So I'm here to say hello and hello to everyone out there. And then I have the pleasure of spending the rest of the afternoon with my dentist, who is right around the corner from here. So.
That sounds like fun. And also
Yeah.
joining us from across the pond, we have former fighter pilot, professional photographer, and current wide-body Airbus captain for a major European carrier, Captain Nick Anderson.
Hi there, Jeff. Hi, Steph. I don't envy you having to head off to the dentist in a moment. I will try
Your
not to
favorite
mention it
place, I
too
hear.
many times. Yeah, I know. Hi, and hi, Dana. It's great to be back on the show, and thank you very much, Jeff. Looking forward to another great show. It's got so much to cover. I better keep this short.
Okay, let's move on to the guy that hasn't been with us for a few weeks, and we're going to find out why here shortly. He is a current first officer on the Mad Dog for Acme Airlines and soon to be captain, Captain Dana.
Good afternoon. I miss all of you guys, and great to be back on the show. I do have a bit of catching up to do. I'll do that here in a few minutes, but great to be back, and look forward to another great show, and great to see Steph and Nick, and of course you, Jeff.
Of course. Thank you. Appreciate that, Dana. Always good to see you, and glad you're back with us. We can't wait to hear about your big journey, your big adventure.
Yeah.
Let's see. I want to do something before we get too far here in the show, because I know that Dr. Steph is going to be leaving us for her dental appointment pretty soon. And somebody named Miami Hick, have you heard of that guy? He sent me something, and he made me promise him that I would not play this unless everybody was on the show. And of course, when we say everybody, we mean, well, of course, it would be nice if Miami Rick were here with us, but he is not. But the current regulars are all here today. So let's go ahead and play what it is that he sent in for us right at the beginning of the show here. So take it away.
Welcome back to American Top 40. I'm your host, Casey Kasem. We finally made it to number 1. Coming in at the top spot is I Want My APG, written and produced by the world's best pilot, Miami Hick. This record is flying off the shelf, and here it is at last. I Want My APG.
Now look at them yo-yos, that's the way you do it. You talk a lot on the APG. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Money for flying and your beer for free. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Let me tell you, them guys ain't dumb. Maybe get a little blister on your finger. Maybe get a blister on your thumb. We've got to fly these McDonnell Douglas. We've got to fly these Airbuses. We've got to move these passengers. And we don't do it for free. See that little pilot with the stripes and the mustache? Yeah, buddy, that's his own hair. That little pilot flies his own jet airplane. That little pilot is a millionaire. We've got to fly these McDonnell Douglas. We've got to fly these Airbuses. We've got to move these passengers. And we don't do it for free.
Outstanding. Awesome.
Yay.
That deserves a big round of applause.
Nice
I
one.
love that.
That was unbelievably great.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Loved
Thank you,
it.
Miami Heck.
Loved it.
Excellent. Nailed it.
Absolutely. Now, do you think Dire Straits are going to be on the phone?
Who?
Nah.
It doesn't sound anything like anything that they ever sang.
No. Any
Well, that's a bit
any
of an
similarity
insult.
it's just purely coincidental. Any
Yes.
insult or any
Absolutely.
similarities there.
It was superb. And they're one of my favorite bands, so that was great.
Yeah, mine too. Thank you. Thank you, Miami Heck, for
brilliant.
for doing that. It was awesome. He just keeps on coming with these hits.
Should we say
Steph,
congratulations to Miami Hick while we have the chance as well?
we should. Since we're speaking of him, Steph, tell us why we should say that.
Well, a little birdie told me that he got married over, I think, the weekend, this past weekend,
Wow.
or earlier in the week. I forget exactly which day,
brilliant.
but
Yeah,
Well,
not too long ago.
congratulations to
Yes,
Miami Hick
congratulations.
and his beautiful bride. Woo.
Fantastic. No, that is really good news. Well done.
Yes, congratulations.
Sympathy card will be in the mail.
Yeah,
Only kidding. Congratulations. That's really good news.
that is great news.
Yeah.
And we always like to let everybody know in the community because we all love each other and support each other. So it's always good to see something positive like that going on in the community. Steph, before you go, catch us up on what has been happening with you since the last episode.
Oh my goodness. I had a whirlwind tour of my least favorite airport in Chicago, O'Hare. So I had a wedding to attend myself last weekend. Someone in my family got married, so was out there for that for just 2 days. Kind of a strange trip because we went to see Guns N' Roses on Friday evening, which was awesome. Sorry, none of this is actually aviation related except for my traveling to and from Chicago. But the concert was up in Winston-Salem, which is kind of a strange place for come to the area. But whatever, we went up there and then got a hotel room that night in Greensboro. Flew out from Greensboro in the morning on one of the United regionals to O'Hare, which was actually a very nice flight. Got in actually a little early, so we were in Chicago by like 8 a.m. for a 1 p.m. wedding. So did that wedding, rest of the day, festivities, dancing, drinking. The next morning, went for a run with my brother. It felt okay for having danced and consumed some alcoholic beverages the night before. And then, later on the day, headed back to the airport. And of course, my flight was the one that was delayed. I was actually coming just straight back to Charlotte. I guess it left Las Vegas late. And so I was actually at the airport at the same time as Justice and both of my brothers. Their flight was later, but because my flight was delayed, I was saying goodbye to Justice. And I was like, all right, well, it's, I know my flight's here. Probably going to be boarding in a minute. So I walked over to my gate and I get there and I knew we were supposed to be on a 737 and I looked out the window and it's a 757 sitting there. And I'm like, so I look back and the information is definitely my flight. And, they're kind of making like pre-boarding announcements. And all of a sudden when the gate agent turns around and goes, what's that plane still doing here?
Oh,
so
that was the previous
clearly
one.
Very, very organized. Yes. Yeah. Very organized. So that took another, 20 minutes to actually, half an hour to actually get the correct airplane to the gate. And yeah.
Wow.
I mean, all told, we were probably only a half hour late getting back to Charlotte, but it was.
Well, it wasn't
I
Acme
just don't like
Airlines,
O'Hare.
was it?
It was not Acme Airlines.
Good. Because we always try hard.
Yes, I know. But it was comical. And
All right.
But I actually have to head over to my appointment, so I'm going to. I could probably listen to most of this while I'm sitting there, so I'll be in the.
Oh, okay,
not
so
in
we
the
have
chat
to.
room, but
We have to be
turn
careful.
the
HR
audio-
will be here.
Turn the audio off, Steph. We don't want to hear you screaming.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful show. Dana, it's good to see you back again. Nick, good to
Thank
see you
you.
always. And Jeff, I'll see you this weekend.
Yep, in a few days.
All righty.
All right.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Cheers, Steph.
Bye. Have fun. Not.
Have fun in inverted commas.
So, Captain Nick, I understand that you had a trip out to San Francisco and there was a big shindig all planned, a big APG meetup out there. Tell us about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know that our West Coast listeners feel they've been let down a little bit by the fact that the APG seem to be, according to some people, an East Coast orientated show, and it's certainly not true. We spread ourselves far and wide into many other countries, but I think in an attempt to compensate, I know you've been out there, and I, my second trip for quite a while, have been going out there lately, suggested we might arrange a meetup, and Jan Sears, Jan the man, he suggested a few pubs near the hotel, so that's what we did. We went up and had a great meetup at the Last Drop Tavern. I think there's a little bit of audio and there might even be a little bit of feedback about that, so I won't say too much. We could probably do those.
All right, I'll play the the audio from the meetup right now.
Hi everybody, it's Captain Nick here, and we're sitting in the Last Drop Tavern, which...
Is that you playing the flute? No, it couldn't be. You're talking. Who is that playing the flute? Is that Fred?
That's the flautist.
Okay, hang on.
The flautist played the flute.
Flautist. Okay.
Yeah.
Phlebotomist?
Hi everybody, it's Captain Nick here, and we're sitting in the Last Drop Tavern, which means that if you're waiting to be hung, then it's probably the place you'll be for that last drop. Okay, so this is not a death sentence. This is the San Francisco meetup, and all these guys and girls, because we have two ladies here, one of which has just disappeared, but Connor's here holding up the end for the ladies, and we're trying to enjoy ourselves. So far, everyone's having a ball. It's really good. Anyway, enough of me. I'm going to go around the room and let everyone have their little say. And the first guy is, of course, our great friend Fred, who has been motoring me around today, picking up all sorts of bits and bobs. Fred, hi.
Hey guys, Fred here. And I'm just going to call out Dana, I think, on this one. Dana, if you ride your motorcycle all the way to the almost West Coast and you don't make it all the way here, we're going to have to talk about that. So consider this an invitation.
That's a nice one, Fred. Okay, this is Connie.
Hi, my name's Connie. This is actually my second APG meetup. I saw Captain Jeff earlier this summer, and I think it's time for Dr. Steph to come out.
time for Dr. Steph to come to California. We all agree with that. I know this is Mike. Mike, what have you got to say, old chap?
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike. I guess my piece is just for Miami Rick. I think when I started listening, you were just doing one of your last podcasts. So just hope to hear from you again soon.
We all wish the same.
Captain Jeff, Steph, Dana, how could you make it this close and not make it to San Francisco? You're killing me, man. Anyway, love the show you guys do, and you know a little bit about me because I left some feedback earlier, but looking forward to more in the future. Thanks so much.
And that, of course, was Jan. So around we go and reaching across now. Now, this bloke is a limey. Okay, he just sounds like an American, but he's pretending.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Proctor. I am a recent private pilot whose license actually arrived in the mail today. So this is super exciting. It's like Christmas, and I have Captain Nick, who looks like Santa, in front of me. Yeah, currently working on my instrument. I also work line service in Concord, California, and hoping to go all the way to the airlines. A career changer. So if anybody wants information on that, you can reach out to me as to what life is like switching over. And thank you for being in California, Captain Nick.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Now, we got an unexpected visitor to the hangout. Now, this guy outranks me. He's older than me. He's definitely more handsome, and we have a training captain of a Boeing 777. So, Steve, please tell us all about yourself.
Hey, Captain Jeff. My name's Steve. I'm 777 captain out of Newark for Acme Blue, and I live in Florida. And I just happened to be on a layover out here, and a couple days ago noticed that through a Twitter feed that there was a meetup, and I happened to be staying at the hotel 4 blocks away, and said, "What the heck? I'm going to go down there and meet all these fun people." And that's exactly what we're doing. Having a great time. It's enjoyable. Enjoy your podcast. I do a lot of long distance motorcycle rides, and that's where I catch up on the podcast. So it's fun. Thanks for all that you do and all the work.
This bloke has everything. I mean, he's got a bit for Dana. He's got a bit for Jeff. Unfortunately, he's got nothing for me. Now, if you have seen the Acme logo for Acme Airlines, then this is the man to listen to. This is the man to thank. This is the man who designed it all. He's a great private pilot. He's got a wonderful airplane. Tell us about yourself, sir.
Hey, Jeff. How are you? Captain Jeff and Steph and Dana and APG guys. Jim Mercado here. Enjoying the meetup. Nice to meet everyone here. So APG community, we are working on Nick here to get him to like Boeing. We're working on him feverishly, and I'm sure by the end of the night, a few beers, he'll be screaming that he loves Boeing. So wish you all were here. Love the show. Keep up the good work.
Screaming.
Nice meeting you, Nick, in person. And we'll talk to you later.
Thanks very much. Well, I guess if you feed me enough IPA, there is a chance this might happen. Now, am I going to be able to get you? No. We've got the lovely wife of this gentleman here, who is another keen APGer, a private pilot, and an ex-copper, as we would say in the UK. So, introduce yourself, sir.
All right. Hey, this is Landon. How are you doing, Jeff?
Hey, Landon.
This is Landon. How are you doing, Jeff? Met you about a month ago. There we go. And hey, it's glad to be here. I'm here with my fiance Natasha. She didn't make it to the last APG meetup in Sunnyvale, but glad to be here, and it's great to be here with fellow APGers talking pretty much, but also talking about other things in life too as well. So it's good times. Yep. Wish you guys were all here. Steph, hello. Rick, wherever you are, Miami Rick, wherever you are, and Dana, you need to get you a bid out here to the Bay Area as well. All right.
Well, thanks very much. Now, I know Tim Van Ram will be coming along later with Dancing Girls, so I hope to add a little bit onto this later. But for now, this is Captain Nick signing out. He's sitting here beside me, and I don't know. He seems to be such a regular appearance on, man who just loves talking on APG. I'm going to have a hard job keeping him down to 5 minutes. Tim, say hello.
Hi, everybody. Do I get to hold it? Oh, wow, you're very trusting. It's lovely to be at a meetup, ABG, and get to see everybody again. I'm starting to recognize people at the meetups, and they recognize me too, so that's fun. And I have my friends with me, and I can't wait for them to get on here and speak.
Excellent. Now I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. First of all, we've got a young lady whose destination is to sit in the captain's seat of a beautiful airliner, hopefully something like the Airbus A350-1000. What do you reckon?
Hello, I'm Teresa Olguin. I just found out about this podcast. I have enjoyed talking with Nick, and my goal is to become a commercial pilot. I just got into an Aeronautical University in Florida, so that's exciting. And I also just joined a group called the 99. It was founded by Amelia Earhart, so I'm very excited to be really getting into the aviation community.
Well, that's wonderful. And how long do you think it'll be before you get to fly an airliner? Go on, give us a guess.
Well, hopefully 3 years.
I hope so too. Well, good luck with your chosen career. And we've got another lovely lady here, I think is a recent acquisition to the APG family.
Yes, actually, I just listened to my first podcast today on Amelia Earhart, because the 99, she was their first president, and it was started in, 1932, 31, for women pilots and promotion of women pilots. So I am the godmother of Teresa Olguin, and so my main goal in life is to support Teresa reach her dream of being an airline pilot. So did you tell them that you got accepted? Oh, so this January she'll be going to Embry-Riddle, and before that she will be getting her mechanics certificate and also her private pilot's license if I have anything to do with it. But my role typically, besides support, is the passenger in the back screaming because I don't like turbulence, but I love my goddaughter. Thank you.
I think that's excellent. You're just like me. I usually sit and scream as well. That's it. Look, we've been having a fantastic meetup here. I'm going to have a good look round. I count, I don't know, it's got to be a good 14 or 15 at this fantastic San Francisco meetup. Anyway, it's been a great evening. And cheers to you all. Back to Jeff.
Oh, I wanted to hear some more flute playing. Dang it.
I'm sorry, I ran out of breath.
Okay. It's amazing how you do that at the same time as talking into the microphone.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that incredible?
So
it's a nose flute. If you hadn't met one before,
or the not quite so popular butt flute, but anyway, we're not going to go there. Oh,
no. Yeah, it's a family show. This
exactly
good
right.
Thing good thing HR is not here right now.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about the butt flute.
No, I said anything but flute.
Anything but
is what we're going to talk about today.
Anything but the flute. Okay, gotcha.
I've got some thank yous to say, by the way, because I was given some gifts. I got two lovely books of aerial photography from Tim, and I've got Above London and Above San Francisco. They're fabulous, and a rather intriguing American flag that looks a bit like a ship's pennant, and only has 35 stars, but in a circle. So that's what that looks like. So I'm intrigued with that.
Nice.
And he also gave me a lovely hat, which I'm now going to wear for the rest of the show. And Jan, the guy that was on earlier, he gave me some stuff as well. Now he flies an Australian aircraft called a Gipper, which he does patrols for the California Highway Patrol. So he's there in their air operations branch as a pilot, and he's the Golden Gate Division. And he gave me this fabulous challenge coin. Now there will be listeners out there who don't know what a challenge coin is, but it's one that's specially struck, usually by military units or certainly units that have a sort of hierarchy and organization, like say the police or the fire departments and things. And there's history goes back quite a long way. It's a lot of it's apocryphal, but goes back perhaps to the First World War, where a guy who an American pilot, he gave all the guys in his squadron some coins that he had specially made to carry with them. And when one of the pilots was shot down behind enemy lines, he escaped, and the only thing he had with him when he tried to get back to the Allied lines, in fact, he was trying to get through to the French lines, was this coin in a pouch around his neck. And they were going to shoot him because they thought he might be a spy trying to get across. But as it turned out, he managed to show them this coin, and it was taken then that he was an American. And instead of shooting him, they gave him a bottle of wine. But challenge coins are very special, and I really appreciate that, Jan. That was a lovely gift, as well as giving me a super T-shirt, which I've been wearing so much it's now dirty. I'm afraid it's in the wash, and a lovely mug. So yeah, with his aircraft on it, which is there's this. Yeah, there's a funny. It's a bit like a caravan. This Australian Gipper. So that was a fabulous one. And Jan's actually left some feedback. Do you want me? Or do you want to read that, Jeff?
Either way.
Okay.
Why don't I read it? Because he's talking about you.
Sir. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, APG crew and listeners. What a great time we all had with Captain Nick at the Last Drop Tavern in San Francisco on August 12th. I met so many wonderful people, from Connie and Mike, who are avid AV geeks, Dave, who had just received his private pilot's license in the mail that day and wants to be an airline pilot, Steve, who is a 777 captain for Acme Blue, and all the other wonderful aviation lovers. Captain Nick told us all much about his life and how being a long-haul captain is. The experience was, for me, one I will never forget. Fred did an awesome job organizing this, and it was a pleasure to meet so many who live in the San Francisco Bay Area who have the love of machines that break the bounds of gravity. Captain Nick, a warm thank you from me for you taking the time, even though it was 0400 for your body clock. Your passion for not only flying, but for those that have a love for it is a powerful force. Thank you so much. And now I have several new friends to share this love with. These meetups are taking my interest in aviation even higher. Godspeed and thanks to the APG.
Wow. He's a lovely guy, Jen. So
Wow.
a lot of time for him. By the way, I forgot to mention my hat, which I also got from Tim. So thank you. And I was just going to mention my last couple of trips, because lots kind of happened to me that was worth mentioning on the show. So if you don't mind, Jeff, could you indulge me for another 5 minutes?
Sure.
Okay,
Go
great.
ahead.
So coming home from New York the other day, it was just fascinating. I shouldn't actually have said New York. Coming home from an East Coast destination that is somewhere near a Long Island, I have had a very interesting situation. We were taxiing out. We were in a 330, so we were doing a reduced engine taxi, only had one engine going. When you do that, it takes you quite a while to wind up the other engine. Then you've got to complete all your control checks and the before takeoff checklist, which is probably the longest checklist we do, and then let the engine warm up for at least 5 minutes before you apply full power. So we're just chugging out, and we know there's about an hour and 5 minutes taxi time. So, and we're expecting to turn, go out towards runway 22 and then turn left all the way around the end of 13 left, and then come all the way back down to the end of 22. You nodding, so you know the route, Jeff. It's just one of those long routes you go on when there's a huge queue ahead of you. And we got asked to stay on taxiway Echo, which is one that sort of scoots straight over, avoids that big loop and goes straight to the threshold. And I thought, well, that's a bit odd. And then they asked us to go to delivery frequency. So I'm saying I'm suspicious here. And asked my first officer, who was on his very first line trip out of training. So I asked him, let's get this other engine going. I've got a funny feeling in my water. Anyway, when we got to delivery, there was a lovely guy there who said that his sister's daughter was on board, and would we kindly pass on thanks and wish her a safe trip, which of course we said we would do. And he then said, oh, by the way, we're going to give you a bit of a shortcut. Excuse me. And he sent us back to ground, who cleared us straight across the runway where the 13 left were facing, up to the threshold. And we're just working like one-armed paper hangers, trying to get all our checks out the way. And they just put us next in line for takeoff. And it must have carved a good 30 minutes off our flight time, because that taxi is just very long. So once we got airborne, I was intrigued to find out a little bit more about this young lady. Went back to chat to her. So she was 12 years old, and she was on a trip back to London. And because of the assistance of her family, the company was saved a considerable amount of money and time. And so we eased her up to upper class, and she enjoyed a very pleasant trip home. So I would like to thank that anonymous member of that wonderful organization at that airfield, which is somewhere near a Long Island, and thank them for saving Acme Red. It's all very anonymous, isn't it? A lot of money, and getting me home on time. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, nobody knows who or what you're talking about. There's no way.
No way they can work that.
I'm completely stumped. I have no idea.
Absolutely. Now, the only other thing that happened was that I took a Jaguar. If you've got any petrol heads out there, we took a Jaguar XR J15 out to San Francisco in the hold, which was rather nice to have that on board. I got some pictures of it I put out on Twitter, I think, and what a lovely motor car to have in the hold. It was very smooth and worth a bit too.
Yeah,
so.
I saw the little exchange between you and Miami Rick regarding the hauling of that car on your Airbus.
Yeah,
it goes
right.
One Jag. That's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've actually got a bigger cargo hold than a 747-400, so we could have fit a lot more. Oh yes, people don't know that. 340-600 has got a big cargo hold. It's very good at carrying cargo. So I don't make a big thing of it because I don't want to embarrass Miami Rick.
Okay.
Anyways, thanks for indulging me, Jeff. That's got everything I've
sure. Yeah, that's a cool story. That's neat. All right, let's see. Shall we talk about Dana's adventure, or should maybe we go with my little meetup in Louisville first, as long as we're on the meetups?
I would say do the meetup. Absolutely.
Okay. Let's do that. Well, before I do that, I wanted to acknowledge when I was at Oshkosh, I missed seeing somebody named Sam Wiltsius, I think is the way you pronounce his last name. Here's his letter to me. The reason why I have a physical letter and not a email letter is because, he was going to, let me read his letter. This came in a big box. Hi, Jeff. Hope you enjoy these 7 Wisconsin beers. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can put that on the video for those of you watching the live stream. Okay. Those 6 or 7, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 beers were in the box. And he says, one of them was a custom beer I had a friend, Phil, brew just for Osh. And that's the one, the third from the, I don't know, this is backwards to me. So anyway, it's the one that says OSH on it. And I'm holding up, you can't see it because I don't have the camera on right at the moment. Anyway, I drank that last night. It was really good. It's a Deadheading Imperial Stout brewed for OSH, Oshkosh. And a very, very cool, very professional label, actually. Very impressive for a homebrew. Anyway, he said, one of them was this custom beer I had a friend Phil brew just for Osh. This was a total run of 32 bottles, so very limited, and had to fight some people back with a stick at Osh to keep them from drinking your bottle. I know it's not an IPA, but I still hope you enjoy this wonderful stout with a fun label. I did. It was a really good beer. So please tell your friend Phil that I really, really enjoyed it. So the other 6 are IPAs from various breweries in Wisconsin. Thank you so much for what you and the team does. I love listening weekly and poking my head into the chat room when I have time. Now, I don't know if Sam is with us today while we're recording this. This is on Thursday, the 17th of August. I don't think I see him piping up in the room there. So anyway, Sam, thanks very, very much for your, and you know what? I'm kind of glad that we didn't see each other at Oshkosh and you didn't give me these beers while I was there, because Dr. John Brown gave me like, what was it? 2 6-packs worth of like 16-ounce cans that just about broke my back. And if you had come up to me with these 7 other beers, I don't think I would have made it to the parking lot. So I'm glad that you had to send them to me.
Not sober, at least.
I was going to say the trick, Jeff, is to drink them, mate. Then they're easy to carry.
True. That's true. But I didn't, I wanted to savor these a little bit, But there were a lot of friends there that probably would have helped me.
Oh yeah, that's the downside of opening them.
Yes, so that's why I didn't, because I was selfish. I wanted to drink all these myself. Anyway, so thank you again, Sam, and he has a little venture, I guess, Wired for Flight. I asked him about that, and it was some kind of a software-related thing, apps for flying and that kind of thing. And he said that they've kind of gone into a different direction, but he'll let me know in the future, if something comes of this Wired for Flight, which is a very cool domain. So good luck with that, Sam. And also, this trip that I was on last week, a 4-day trip, Little Rock, the second day, I was supposed to meet up with somebody, I think Robert, in Little Rock, and perhaps others in the area, but never made it to Little Rock. And I'm sad about that, but it just didn't work out because we had a mechanical issue in Norfolk, Virginia, and we had to wait for the what was wrong with the airplane? Oh, the brake. Yeah, we were pushing back from the gate, and something was like, you could just tell there was some kind of resistance. Like, and obviously the brakes were released, because you can't, if the brakes are set, you cannot push the airplane. And so we were rolling backwards a little bit, but you could just tell it was labored. I'm thinking, is that our jet or is that his tug? And I said, can you feel that? And he goes, yeah. And I said, does that feel normal to you? And he goes, no. I said, okay, let's stop. And I said, I think one of the brakes is grabbing or hanging. So he tried to pull us the other direction, same thing. In fact, I think he broke the tow bar. And so why don't you just, make sure it's just not your tug. So he got another tug. I think he did that first, and then he started to try to drag us, and that's when the tow bar broke. But anyway, they eventually got us back to the original position at the gate, and we went outside and looked at the brakes, and one of the brakes, the number 4, the right outboard main brake, just didn't look the same as the others. So we suspected that was the culprit. So we had to wait. I just
thought you'd forgotten to pull the anchor up.
Yeah, well, we checked that first. That was the very first thing we did. Okay. And we looked through the little door that's below our feet. The same one that we use to drop like little bits of food to the animals in the hold. And yeah,
is that where the lever for the Bluetooth is as well, Jeff?
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, we determined that was indeed the problem, and it was contract means that they had to send in a part from Atlanta. And so anyway, we spent probably, I don't know how many hours there that day, 7-8 hours. And then we missed the deadhead to Little Rock. I thought there was a chance I was going to make it. But because everything took so long, by the time we got back to Atlanta, we had missed the deadhead flight from Atlanta to Little Rock. And by that point, I think we were now approaching the end of our duty day. So they said, just go home and then come back tomorrow, pick up the trip from there. So that's what we did. And so hopefully back out in Little Rock next month, we'll try this again. But we did make it into Louisville on Wednesday of last week. And I got to meet up with some APGers there at the Louisville Slugger Museum. And those folks were Trent, Justin, Andrew, and Stuart. And I have some audio of that meetup. So let's listen to that, if you don't mind. So, hey, we're at what's the name of this place? The Muscle and Burger Bar. Thank you. And Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm with a great group of guys. We just finished going to the Louisville Slugger Museum, learning everything you wanted to know about wood. Now I have staff's attention. No, just kidding. That's what she said. Learned a lot about how they make baseball bats, and yes, one of the participants here is drinking good wood. Wow, that blows my mind right there. Anyway, good wood lager, I should say. We're here sitting at a table in this room in the back, and it's actually, believe it or not, quieter than the other part of the restaurant. So hopefully you can hear us. We're going to be passing the microphone around as we do. Anyway, so introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about yourself, and yeah, that's about it. And oh, here we go. I'm going to start to the guy on my left who kind of organized this meetup. Took the bull by the horns, as Dispatcher Mike likes to say. So here we go. Here's Trent.
Hi, my name's Trent. I go to Eastern Kentucky University in Richmond, Kentucky. I'm in my last year working on my single engine commercial. And I just want to say thanks for Jeff for coming out for us tonight. And I have a little gift for him too, if it comes down to the bag. It's a personalized Louisville Slugger mini bat to hit his FO with. And it says Captain Jeff, and below that it says the airline pilot guy.
Thank you. This is awesome. And I'll take a picture of this and put it in the show notes. Wow. Thank you.
No problem.
I've never had a personalized bat.
Yeah. So hit your FO with it, hit Dana with it a couple times.
Oh, you don't want to let Dana even get involved in this. You've heard what Dana does to captains?
No.
He hits them on the head if he doesn't like what they're doing?
No.
So I'll go ahead and pass it on to the next guy to my left.
My name's Justin. All of us here tonight, aside from Captain Jeff, are students at Eastern Kentucky University. I just graduated in May, and I'm finishing up my CFI at the moment. Spent the summer out in Colorado with an internship studying international procedures, and December I start another internship for 12 months with, we'll call them Acme Brown, here in Louisville, with their training department. I'll pass it on to the next guy.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I also graduated in May. I had been a professional flight major at EKU, and got my private license, my multi-engine rating, and my instrument rating. But I've switched to airline management as my focus. So right now, just looking for another career, and really want to thank Captain Jeff for coming out today.
Hi, I'm Stuart. I also went to EKU, recently finished. Got my commercial in single engine and multi. Got my CFI, and I'm in that phase for looking for work. So hopefully this helps.
Anybody out there listening, he's ready to work. Great bunch of young aviators out here, very impressed with, as I'm always impressed with people in this world of aviation, especially the young people. What a great time. It was funny, we were at this baseball museum, and guess what we were all talking about? After we finished the tour, we were all standing around and we started to talk about the Aviation Museum, the U.S. Air Force Aviation Museum in Dayton, talking about XB-70s and C-141s and Concords and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, we're all true av geeks. Anyway, so here we are. Looks like our food is just getting here, so I think it's time for me to stop talking and start eating. So again, great time here. That's all. Bye. That was it. We had a great time, and it really was funny. We were at this baseball museum and baseball bat manufacturer, and we were out there surrounded by all this history of bat making and everything else, and we were talking airplanes. I thought you could really tell that we're a bunch of hardcore aviation geeks. In fact, oh, that's nice. What do you have on your head there, Dana?
A little baseball helmet.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit too small, I'd say, for your head, but
I've heard that before.
So, and I see you have a baseball bat there as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
The plastic is just not. It's just not a big enough helmet for me.
Yeah.
So, Well,
okay. Let's
I'm
see.
a baseball fan.
There was a portion of this museum / tour place, whatever, that had a bunch of Legos, and in this case, I mean Legos or Lego, from Denmark.
Lego
little
Mago?
plastic interlocking plastic pieces. Not talking about the big city in Nigeria, Nick. And
Okay.
and they had all these baseball parks made out of Lego, and so they had a little place where you could like put. I think it was mainly for children. That I believe it was Stuart started playing with some of the Legos over there, and he created this masterpiece. I have it again. If you're watching the video, you should be able to see he made a little airplane. So again, you just can't get the aviation out of an aviation geek when you go out in public. And I noticed, Nick, you mentioned something about Natasha, that she'd never ever want to attend another meetup again. Why she wasn't impressed with all the aviation geekery?
Oh, no, I was putting words into her mouth. I think she was looking at her husband, Landon, and going, "Is this really what you do in your special?" Actually, and it wasn't husband, Beyonce. So I was just a little bit worried there because she's going. I think she formed a slightly different opinion of him after he spent about 2 hours drinking beer and hanging out with us. She was just thinking to herself, "I can see the cogs turning. Is this what our marriage is going to be like?"
Yeah, I'm thinking, Landon, that was a bad move. You should wait until after you've
wait until she's signed on the dotted line.
Exactly. Oh well. So. Okay, that was it for our Louisville, not layover, but meetup, and had a grand time. So thank you again, Trent, Justin, Andrew, and Stuart for the nice little Louisville Slugger bat. And I really do appreciate it. Had a great time. Okay, now the long-awaited explanation of why you, Dana, have not been on the show for the last, 2 or 3 weeks?
Two episodes.
Okay.
83 and 84.
Okay. So explain yourself.
Well, I tried to be on the show. Actually, I made my cell phone a hotspot, and
that didn't work out, I guess.
I brought my laptop with me, and I brought the microphone. Actually, is really dirty. I have to clean it. It sat in my saddlebag for 3 weeks. Ended up going on a little road trip on the Harley. Got invited by a fellow pilot at Acme to join him on a 3-week adventure. So I took him up on that. Part of the reason why I was not able to join the shows is I was on the motorcycle quite a bit, but another part was I was very remote. Most of the places that we stayed, there was no cell phone service, internet service, Wi-Fi, or anything else. So I thought about tweeting how my trip was going, and did not do so because, well, most of the time that I had any type of services when I was on the motorcycle. And, as you saw today, Dana, don't be texting while you're riding your motorcycle. Well, I don't do that. I actually was at a stoplight, and I just wanted to get the response back. So, but the trip was 7,000, as the crow flies, 7,221 miles is how many miles I rode my motorcycle over 19 days, including getting out to the Bay Area, which I heard a couple comments from the meetup out there. I was being led by a fellow rider, and we spent very little time. Well, actually spent a little too much time in the Bay Area with mechanical issues on my motorcycle. But yeah, I actually my motorcycle ended up in the shop not once but twice on this trip. Yeah. So we the basic route was we came out of Georgia. We went straight across Alabama, Mississippi, crossed over the Mississippi River. That's when I knew I was really far away from home, and went through Oklahoma, Panhandle of Texas, New Mexico, the upper part of New Mexico, which is Taos, up into the mountains, beautiful area. Then into Arizona to the Grand Canyon, then into SoCal. We were originally supposed to go see the guy I was going. His daughter lives out in the LA area, but she was tied up, so we slipped past the LA area. Oh, I missed. We went through Vegas, and went to Death Valley. That was quite interesting. And my on my GPS on my bike, I have the ability to look at elevations. So I was able to see what my highest elevation was and my lowest elevation.
So Death Valley doesn't have the reputation it's supposed to have because you're still alive.
Yeah, I made it through.
Oh, well,
and believe it
well
or
done.
not, you want to know, I was thinking about that this morning when I was packing up my gear, and I was just outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee, on the Tennessee River, a beautiful campground, actually. And I'm sitting there and looking down at my arms and my shirt. I am completely and totally soaked in sweat. And I was thinking back to when I was in Death Valley and how Death Valley really isn't the hottest place. The Southeast United States is the hottest place in this country after exploring everything. So, yeah, it doesn't have that reputation. Beautiful place. You come down over the mountain pass, and you keep on. I kept on watching basically altimeter, but the GPS countdown elevation. I think the lowest I got was minus 86 feet. I'd have to look at the photos. I haven't gone through them yet. Then went up to Yosemite. Beautiful, beautiful place. Yosemite National Park. Left Yosemite, and that's when my motorcycle decided to have a conniption. It overheated. Ironically, when we were in Las Vegas, I looked over at my buddy that I was riding with, and his motorcycle is not liquid cooled. The newer motorcycle is liquid in air cooled, which is what mine is. And I looked at him and said, "You worried about your motorcycle overheating because we're stuck in, afternoon rush hour 5 o'clock traffic?" And he said, "No, I'll be okay." And the next thing you know, his motorcycle, the engine is pre-igniting, so that's not a good thing. So ironically, nothing happened to his motorcycle, but my motorcycle ended up having the heat issue. So my luck, as always, the part was on national back order, so nobody had it in stock. Went to a couple of different dealerships on Sunday, and nobody would work on it. And we found the one part in California, and it was scheduled to be put into a bike the following morning in Eureka. And they told me it was used. So I was kind of SOL until they called me back and said, "Well, good news, UPS just confirmed they have 3 new water pumps coming in, and it's coming in the truck today." I was like, wow, there's a God after all. So we left the wine country area, which was beautiful to ride around. And then we went up to the Pacific Coast Highway north of San Francisco up to Fort Bragg. And then that's where it cuts back into the 101. If anybody's on the West Coast knows the 101 goes all the way up and down, up into Eureka. I mean, I got to be honest with you, it's probably the most beautiful ride I've ever had. It's the route where the Pacific Coast Highway north of San Francisco going up to Fort Bragg. Absolutely gorgeous. Then we went up through Crescent City, up through into Oregon, over to Crater Lake, which was quite an interesting place. The crater is full of water. Toured around there a little bit, and all of this is happening very quickly. And we're really not stopping to enjoy very much. We're stopping to take photographs here and there, but most of the time I'm on the motorcycle. I'm taking photographs as we're going by, and just putting the camera in the air and taking photographs. Because it was a very aggressive itinerary. So we left Crater Lake, we went over to and drove through. My God, I did not realize Eastern Oregon is absolutely gorgeous, desolate, not a whole lot of people there, but it went through some valleys, through a mountain range. It was, and I had just put my camera away. I thought, the sun's going down, there's nothing for me to take photographs, and that was the wrong thing to do because it was fantastic. Went over to Yellowstone, which is a magical place. Enjoyed that. And anybody that's ever heard of Beartooth Highway, Beartooth Highway is probably my favorite motorcycle road I've ever been on. It's over a mountain. It goes up to just about 12,000 feet, or about roughly 2 miles into the air. And that was fun. And then over to Sturgis. I made it to Sturgis. There it is on my shirt right there.
Nice. So that's in Wyoming?
That is actually South Dakota.
Oh, South Dakota. Okay.
South Dakota. We went to the Black Hills, did some riding there, went to see Mount Rushmore. Another great ride out of there was, a couple of real good twisties, but they had the Spearfish Canyon absolutely gorgeous when you're in the canyon and you get walls on both sides of you. And then ultimately made it home and back on APG about an hour and a half after I arrived back after being gone for 19 days.
Oh, wow. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I mean, you just got home, literally just got home.
Literally just got home. And, during my ride, I did a lot of radio listening, but I listened to the APG, obviously, both last episodes, heard some really good comments. One from Kiwi about my computer, which, by the way, I have a glass of water and I'm using my refurbished Apple computer this afternoon, and no beer anywhere near it at all.
Very sensible, Dana.
Yeah, so if water goes on it, hey. But anyways, it was the computer's back. I'm back. I've got a nice beard. For those folks on the radio side of things can't see it, but I haven't shaved in 24 days. It's been kind of nice, in my whole experience. And I think this is probably, I really can say this is true. A couple times I've had some meetups. I met some of the APG listeners. One of the things that I was taken back most by is how nice, once you get away from some of the big cities, how nice the American people are. They're very, very, very friendly, very courteous, very helpful. And I just really enjoyed getting out and meeting people and talking to people and seeing the wonderful country. We get to see it from 35,000 feet all day long, but until you get down there in the nitty gritty and go like we did all back roads and see all these unique places. And one of the things I did, aviation related on this trip, is I was really amazed at how many small general aviation airports there are in this country and how many of them I drove by. And got to talk to some local aviation folks at the airports that we stopped. We stopped at one place in I forget whether it was New Mexico, but it was it's quite literally a truck stop, an airplane stop on the airport. So I started talking aviation, and it was fun. It was exciting, and but what kind of bothered me is all these airports. I never even saw one general aviation airplane flying. Of all the airports I saw, and it had to have been about 3 dozen. So, beautiful country, great time, and I'm very happy to be back safe, of course, and also fortunate to have the opportunity to come back to the APG and tell you all about it. It has nothing to do with aviation, but it was very enjoyable.
Well, you got some aviation elements in there.
I sure did.
You're flying down the highway in that big hog.
That certainly sounds like it was an epic trip. Well done, Dan.
It really, in my life, there are certain things in life that either form you, change you, or define you. And there's only one event I can think of that's more defining in my life and more enjoyable in my life that I've had, and that's marrying my wife. That's the number one thing I've ever done. This trip was number 2. I mean, completely out of my comfort zone. I've never really grew up. I mean, when I was a kid, I did a little bit of camping, but never did real camping. Never, did a whole lot of adventure outside of the realm of my my neighborhood or that much traveling. So this was, I've never been away from my wife for 3 weeks. Completely out of my realm. So it was a big adventure, and it turned out very well. I can't say I liked the camping so much, though.
I was going to say, did you do camping the entire time?
All but one night. We went to Yellowstone, and we were unable to secure a campsite there, so we ended up having to get a $300 a night hotel room. So it was quite expensive. But the entire time we're out in I will say our state park and national park system here in this country is amazing. Some, facility is a lot better than others, but we primarily camped out at state parks and or national parks, and shower facilities, bathroom facilities. The best one was in Oregon, and it was God rest my soul for saying this, but it was run by all women, and it was the nicest, cleanest facility of them all. So
of course, they like
yes,
that clean.
yeah, it was great. It was just, the camping part of it, yeah, maybe not, but the bike, being on the bike, I thought after, the first day that my butt would be so sore and I would be able to walk and my back would be killing me. And it was farthest from the truth. It's 7,221 miles, and I'm ready to go get back on the bike right now. It's just amazing. And that's how, that's how we feel about aviation. That's what keeps on driving us in aviation. And anybody that is thinking about getting into it, like your meetup over there, Nick, in San Francisco, with the young lady going to Embry-Riddle, or the career changer, that's the same type of feeling that I had riding this motorcycle. Is the same type of feeling I had when I started learning how to fly. If it's something you really enjoy, then just go ahead and do it.
Yep, good point. Very good point.
Go for it. Well, thanks, Dana.
Thank you for the time to
All right.
Well, that explains why I couldn't tweet. That explains why I couldn't tweet, and that's why it explains why I couldn't join the show. I was just too remote. Yeah,
you know what? I think that just concentrating on that adventure and those experiences was more important. So we knew you'd be back. So
I'm here.
All right, great. And now it's time to move on and thank those people who support our show financially. We call it the Coffee Fund.
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me.
A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. I love coffee, I love tea, I love the APG community. And I know all of you do as well. And as I mentioned, if you want to support the show financially, you can do so by joining the Coffee Fund cadre and participate in the Coffee Fund. And since the last episode, we have two ways to do it. The Coffee Fund Classic method via PayPal, and also Patreon. You can become a patron of the show. And since the last show, I did that for dramatic effect. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that when I edit the show. Anyway, since the last show, using the Coffee Fund Classic method, Andrew Wilson, and recurring payment from Jeff Moeller, Jeff and Anissa. I don't know if they made it out to the meetup or not, Nick, but they're in the Bay Area as well. I've met them a couple of times. Met Jeff a couple of times, and Anissa, I think, only once. But anyway, great folks out there in Northern California. And then I mentioned the Patreon, becoming a patron. Since the last episode, Austin Naska and two new executive producers, Tanya. Yay, Tanya. She's with us in the chat room right now. Thank you, Tanya, for becoming an executive producer. And also Ben Richards, another new executive producer. And we appreciate your patronage. That's it. And with that, I think it's time to wrap it up as far as the Coffee Fund is concerned. Again, you can learn more about the Coffee Fund by heading over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. Percolated. I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
I would leave that pause in there. That's actually an excellent attention getter.
Yeah, it is.
People just stop and think, well, what's going on? So it gets people's attention.
And somebody's asking if the beard is staying. And James, unfortunately, at least here in our country, we are not allowed, or at least our airline, I'm assuming it's an FAA thing, but maybe it's just an airline thing. We're not allowed to have beards. Unlike, obviously, the EASA requirements, because good old Captain Nick there has a nice full beard on his face.
Yeah, that's right. We don't have sticks up our backsides, you see.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, was that a bit pointed? Ouch.
Oh, ow.
That's how you get them up there. They need to be pointed sticks.
Okay. Let's move on then. I'm just getting the conversation is getting a little pointed.
Only joking, folks.
Yeah, no, he's not. Okay. This is from Aviation Daily, part of the Aviation Week conglomerate. Pilotless commercial aircraft. Let me try that again. Pilotless commercial aircraft? Follow the money. This is from Michael Bruno, Aviation Daily, August 7th. Many of you sent in feedback regarding some aspect of this news item. The big bank, UBS, put out a paper or an article or whatever saying, or analysis, I guess, that think of all the money we're going to save by getting rid of those pesky pilots. Quote, meaningful savings can be generated via mission optimization, greater predictability, and reduced flight crew and training costs. A new report from UBS Aerospace, Airlines, and Logistics sector analysts. Younger, 18 to 34 years old, and more educated respondents were found to be more willing to fly on a pilotless plane. This bodes well for the technology as the population ages. The analysts see a potential profit opportunity worth about $35 billion for the aviation and aerospace manufacturing sectors. That includes more than $26 billion in pilot cost savings for the airlines that UBS covers. And then they go on breaking it down some more dollar amounts. And again, the people that come up with these crazy ideas obviously don't know much about the way an airplane works, and I'm sure they're not pilots. They don't understand how, if everything is perfect and the weather is perfect and nothing goes wrong with the airplane, well, sure, an airplane can fly autonomously and safely and save the airlines a lot of money. Problem is, you can't. That's a perfect world that we don't live in. We have weather, and we've mentioned this on earlier shows, where every flight is different because the weather is always different. And there are times when you're looking at something out your window and you're going, now people would say, well, I'm sure they'll have cameras, that'll analyze things other than, kind of matching up radar, LiDAR, visual cameras and everything else to avoid buildups and that kind of thing. Perhaps, but when something goes wrong, and we can list the number of accidents that have occurred in aviation history, that if it weren't for the fact that there were pilots, humans with human brains on board the aircraft, they would have been total losses. And they always throw out this figure, I don't know if it's in this article or not, about the percentage of accidents that are caused by human error. And it is very high. It's like 80-90%, I believe, at least.
Yeah, but that's an easy statistic, because as the technology has improved the reliability of aircraft, the only factor left is human factors, isn't it, Jeff? And actually, the number of crashes hasn't really changed over the years. It's just the proportion attributed has changed.
Yeah, the accidents have actually gone down.
Yeah.
But the as you said, the human factors continues to be a huge portion, as for exactly what Nick stated, advances in technology and everything else. But the thing that nobody ever mentions is the fact, what about the percentage of flights out there that could have been complete disasters if not for the fact that the pilots kept the airplane flying and safe?
Absolutely.
There's no way you can get a statistic on that, because we don't. It's not like, every flight we come down and we write up, okay, this is what happened and this is what we did to keep it from crashing. We just don't do that.
Well, it's not sensational enough. I mean, you can't have a show about really can't. I mean, I guess Wings was kind of a show about flying, but very few shows about flying, because it's, most of the time our job is pure boredom punctuated by a few moments of terror. So, and our job is that the few moments of terror that we get to, experience. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. We do our damnedest to make sure nothing ever happens. And that's usually the case. So, we are just really good at what we do, and there's never going to be a statistic on that. It's if Dr. Steph was here, she could tell you the same thing in the medical field, probably. I mean, you hear about all these, you never hear about, okay, well, this guy had an appendectomy, and, the doctor's done 25,000 of them, never had a problem. And the next thing you know, one patient gets sick, and then all of a sudden his name splashed all over the news. The freak doctor is not able to. So that's the thing. The news media, the news outlet, they always want something that's sensational, that's going to bring people's attention, and it's all like, oh my God. I mean, you watch afternoon news on any local TV, they're not talking about, the flower fund that, people put together to honor people that, they're always talking about, well, this person got shot, this person got robbed, this carjacking, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's what the news media does.
Well, just to name one.
Sorry, Jeff, carry on.
No, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, there's some great comments following this article, though. In one of which is, how much would be saved if the management were substituted by artificial intelligence, which I thought was a great response. And obviously a guy who's a captain who says, not one of these engineers, financial analysts, or writers of these articles that push these ideas have ever been in command of an airliner during an unlit sky riddled with seemingly impenetrable lines of thunderstorms everywhere, storms that don't show up on radar and are nearly impossible to discern until the last few seconds. Now throw in the hundreds of other variables that require human intervention, and any professional aviator will tell you this is all a pipe dream to get pet projects of said engineers off the ground, funding as it were. It won't happen. Lives are still too important. Ever had your laptop freeze up? Ever had an app crash? No matter how much redundancy an aerospace engineer builds into these processes, stuff happens, things break. That's where the professional aviators come in. Very well written reply.
Yes, very well. And just to name like one instance, the Air France, no, why can't I think of the name of it? The number 407, the crash of the Airbus A330 over the Atlantic Ocean. When the pitot tubes got clogged up for under a minute, but it was an inappropriate response by one of the pilots at the controls, and that ended up killing several hundred people. Perfectly good airplane, except for that first, just under a minute. But there were, after that incident, actually before it, there were several instances of the same thing occurring with ice crystal icing, clogging up the pitot tubes, but the crews doing the right thing, knowing instinctively, what your picture is going to look like, your power setting, just leave it where it is, just hold it where it is, and then everything will come back and everything will be fine. Several of those instances have occurred, but they don't make it into the statistics. So the only statistic that we remember is this huge tragedy and a massive loss of life and human error. And not, we never hear about or hardly ever hear about the fact that humans saved, hundreds of, well, probably thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of lives on a year-to-year basis. So again, as you can tell from our point of view here as airline pilots, this is not, and it's not just because we are concerned about losing our jobs, because obviously this is not going to occur in my career.
Certainly not in mine.
Not in Captain Nick's. He's got a couple of years remaining. I have about a little over 6 years remaining. Dana, what, 14, 15 years? I don't know.
A little more.
Yeah.
19.
Okay, 20, 19. Okay, almost 20. It's not going to occur in any of our career lifetimes. But we're just, and so it's not anything about us trying to preserve our paycheck. It's because it just doesn't make sense. It's not going to happen. You might see some, cargo carriers adopting this technology, but again, they're carrying around boxes, and those things can be replaced, but lives cannot. And you're never going to see mark my words, 200 years from now, if you're listening to this, do you have airplanes flying around with passengers, without a human there to take over in case something goes wrong? I doubt it.
I mean, they can't even make it work with automobiles, and that's a 2D environment. I mean, ours is infinitely more complex.
Right.
What I do see, Jeff, and we've talked about this before, in the future, I do see where the automation will be in place, where instead of having two pilots, you'll have one pilot. And then, maybe a central location where you have a backup to that pilot in the form of, a drone pilot that could actually take over the aircraft if all else fails. So I see something like that. I know that's a little bit sci-fi and probably, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. But I absolutely agree with both of you guys. This is it's not gonna change today, tomorrow, or any time in the near future because, it doesn't make sense to put human lives up there without I think the first that might actually go to it would be a military application. But I don't even see that.
Dr. Dan makes a good point in the chat room. Even the Starship Enterprise had people at its controls.
That's true.
Yes, very nice. And if a military aircraft crashes, most of the time the guys, will eject, and if it doesn't have passengers because it's a military airplane, then no one even bothers to mention it.
Yeah, but when I'm talking military applications, I mean, I know we have drones flying around with missiles on them and doing surveillance, but I'm talking more like a cargo operation. And let me say that properly so people understand. Cargo, not cargo.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Cargo.
Yes.
Okay.
That type of an application is what I'm thinking about when I mention military, where they might go down to
that kind of makes more sense.
Down to maybe one or two crew members and have drone replacement and the automation to be able to back it all up. I see that in the probably more near future for military application, because usually it's the military applications that come out with stuff first anyways. I mean, after World War, it's during the World Wars, the leaps and bounds. And so I think that would be far more realistic.
Yeah. Well, anyway, hopefully that'll be put to bed until the next slow news cycle when somebody comes up with this cockamamie idea again.
And anyone who thinks that it's an Airbus initiative, then it says here, Boeing reportedly is getting ready to test pilotless technology next year.
Yep. Because of this pilot shortage. So we caused this pilot shortage, and now what are we going to do? We're going to get rid of pilots. That'll fix it. Nope.
Yep. No problem.
Okay. Just an update on that Air Canada near miss, San Francisco International last month. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration and Air Canada. Okay, this is actually from it's an editorial in the East Bay Times. And they had some pretty harsh words for a couple of different entities. One, the FAA, and the other, Air Canada. They, in this editorial, say both of them, the FAA and Air Canada, hindered the investigation of last month's near catastrophe as a result, by dragging their feet in the aftermath. As a result, key evidence from the cockpit voice recorder was erased, and the pilots were never tested for drugs or alcohol. It's a bureaucratic cover-up that conveniently protects the federal agency and the airline involved. And then, but of course, they do talk about the fact here that technically this was not an accident, and there was no requirement to, ground the airplane, pull the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder tapes, and to have the pilots tested, because there was no. I mean, it was a close call, but there was no accident. And this editorial basically is saying, well, then there should be some kind of provision in there for a situation like this, for that to take place, so that we can understand exactly what happened. So now we don't have the cockpit voice recorder. We don't know what the conversation was going on in the cockpit when they were mistaking the taxiway for a runway, etc. The editorial writer makes some good points here. We'll put a link to this in the show notes. But Jim Hall, former NTSB chairman, said that these reporting guidelines should be addressed in the investigation. This was probably the most significant near miss we've had in this decade. He said, I think splitting hairs on this issue on an incident of this significance is a disservice to safety.
Yeah.
So
I don't think any of us realized just how low the aircraft had got, Jeff, to be fair. So perhaps they didn't think it was quite as serious it was. But when you realize that the aircraft bottomed out at 59 feet and the Philippine Airlines A340 they flew over has a fin that goes up to 56 feet, that's a 3-foot miss distance. I mean, that's horrendous.
It was a close call. And Liz, please, it just happens that this airline is from your country, but you shouldn't feel bad about this because it could have been any airline.
They're all going to try and hide anything they can. Liz, don't worry, they're all the same.
Yeah. Just so happened in this case it was Air Canada. So.
Isn't this the same country that blamed Airbus of having an airplane flying into the ground?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just stating the obvious here. No, I honestly, I love Canada. I mean,
well, to be fair, I've got a sister-in-law who works for them, and she loved Canadian, the company that was taken over by Air Canada, and she said it was just such a most awful thing when Air Canada took them over. They've got a completely different attitude towards the company.
Well, then, Liz, I changed my mind. I think that you should feel personal shame every time we talk about this.
Poor Liz. That's so unfair. Don't send him any more IPA, Liz.
Let's move on then. The SNPL. I've never heard of this organization, but apparently it's it's the pilots union for French pilots of the British low-cost carrier EasyJet. I'm not sure. Nowhere in this article does it say what SNPL stands for, and if they did, I probably couldn't pronounce it anyway. So thank you very much for that. This is from Aerotime, AERO Time, Aviation News. French pilots of the British LCC EasyJet blame the company for their ambitions to maximize the number of flights during summer season, which according to them causes delays and cancellations and potentially puts passengers at risk. They sent an open letter addressed to the founder of EasyJet, Stelios Haji Ayun. I don't know. How do you pronounce that? Anybody want to
I just say Stelios.
Stelios.
Everyone calls him Stelios.
Okay, so I understand why.
Try and do the other bit.
I can't pronounce the rest of it. Anyway, signed by the French pilots of the airline affiliated with the pilot union SNPL. The flight program of the airline is called unrealistic and endangering the safety of passengers. As it can be understood from the letter, the desire to maximize profits in the summer period leads to a schedule that the company is unable to follow. According to SNPL, the airline canceled 541 flights in July, which is 8.9% more than a year earlier. At the end of July, an employee of Nice Airport got in a fight with an EasyJet passenger when he tried to find out the reasons for the delay of a flight from Nice to Luton. Over the past 12 months, EasyJet has transported. Well, anyway, so it has the body of the text from the letter that was sent to Stelios, and their concern that the very unattainable schedule that they have going on is just not sustainable, and they're very concerned with safety, and so I'm not sure where that's going to go.
They're not the first union to have complained, and the time to actually complain, Jeff, was when the European Union were bashing out the new EASA rules, when they basically bought all the flight limitation rules of the flight time limitation rules of all the various European countries and amalgamated them into EASA. And I don't remember seeing the SNPL. I may be doing them a disservice. I remember seeing them making a big show and lobbying all the MPs in the European Parliament. I know my union did. BALPA, they made a very big show and tried to get them changed. But unless every pilot union had done the same, we ended up with a situation where the rules are considerably more relaxed than the UK ones were, for sure. So this is a bit like closing the stable door after the horse has bolted, I'm afraid. It's all very well whinging now, but you should have done something a couple of years ago, old chap.
Too much, too little, too late.
I'm afraid so.
I think so. I took the time to look up what SNPL is, by the way.
Please tell us.
Syndicat National des Pilotes de Ligne.
Ah, very well.
That's
I'm well educated now.
Okay.
Yeah, so there you go.
Basically, Dr. Dan says it's like the equivalent of our ALPA. So anyway, so just thought I'd throw that in there. I thought that was interesting. That was something that came out just yesterday, I believe, or the day before, August 15th. Yeah. All right. And you know what? You want to try something? Two of our APG community members, before we move on to the feedback, have been experimenting with an idea, a concept. I think they're calling it APG Jeopardy. Are you guys game? You want to get it? Game?
Do I get a prize?
Game.
No prizes.
Oh,
do I get a free beer?
That would be a prize.
Free laptop because of the beer.
I tell you what, I'll buy the beer for whoever wins this game.
Cool. I like the game.
Okay, so right now it's just going to be two contestants, First Officer / Captain Dana and Captain Nick. And I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Of course, every time I do this, it ends up killing my camera, but I'm going to do it anyway. So let me see.
My mic will not stay up.
Yeah. Where is that?
Sounds like a personal problem. You better be fast on that mute button is all I can say.
I know, I keep hearing all kinds of racket in the background, all kinds of noises from you, Dana.
Oh, Andy says this shouldn't be Jeopardy. This should be Jeopardy.
Jeopardy. Thank you. Good idea, Andy. This is Jeopardy. Right. So are you seeing the are you seeing that on the screen there? Okay. Again, this is I said two APG crew community members, James Balch, that's Balch, James Balch, and Micah came up with this. And let's see here. I'm going to try to find some kind of a sound effect to play. Let's see. Let's try this. This is Jeopardy! All right. Our contestants, Dana and Nick. And you'll see the board. Commercial plane types, RIP airlines, call signs, name that aviation movie, and military aircraft names and numbers. And
that's Nick's specialty right there.
Okay, let's see. So we did, before we started play, we drew straws and determined that Dana would start first.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, boo.
You don't remember that?
I thought it was age before beauty.
Oh, whatever. So, Dana, looking at the board here, where do you want to start?
Oh, let's go call signs.
Call signs for
$100.
$100. Here we go. Republic. What's their call sign?
Oh my God. I hear it all the time too. I give up.
Okay. Captain Nick.
Do I get to guess at this one?
Yes.
They're called Slam Dunk.
Okay. Both of you were incorrect. I wish there was a way for me to, I don't know if it actually subtracts money or not. But the correct response is Brickyard.
Brickyard, yeah.
Brickyard. Okay.
I know that too. That's the sad part.
All right. So Captain Nick, let's go have you choose the next.
Name that aviation movie for $300.
All right. 1986 film featuring planes and volleyball.
Oh, I get it.
Oh,
Top Gun.
Yeah.
Top Gun. Okay.
Yeah,
let's see.
$300. Suck that up, Dana.
There we go. I don't know why it's saying negative 300. Negative 600. Wait a minute. I don't know. Somebody keep track in the chat room. So Nick has 300. For some reason, this thing is not working. Okay, continue. We should have done a rehearsal on this. Captain Nick, you have the correct last answer, so go ahead and continue.
Okay, I'll go name that aviation movie for $400.
Okay. 1997 film featuring Nicolas Cage.
That would be Oh God damn it! I know the movie.
do
How long
too.
do I get? It's something to do with flying prisoners around. Oh, I can't remember the name.
Okay. Dana, you have an idea?
Yeah, it's Air America. No, it's not. What is? Well, Air America. I can't remember it.
Nope. Con Air.
Con Air. That's it.
Okay. But you didn't. You know what? What we need here, and it's something that James was concerned about. Trying to get some kind of a buzzer system in here. This is the first time we're playing this, so we're trying, but we're going to have to work the bugs out. But now I understand how to correctly tabulate the score. I didn't realize that there was a difference between the check mark and the
Did
X
I
mark.
lose money for getting that wrong?
Yeah, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to, let's see. I'm trying to get this back to 0 so that it's fair.
I've still got $200. Make sure I've still got at least $200 at the end.
Okay,
of this.
$200 we're going to give you, and I don't know if Dana's gotten one right yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm terrible at these games.
Let's see. Captain Nick, your move.
I'm still going for aviation movies. I'll try the $500 one.
Okay, here we go. Oh, it's a daily double. How much would you like to wager?
I would like to wager everything.
Everything.
Oh, wow.
Okay, 200. It's not your money anyway, right? 1980 film featuring a former basketball legend.
That'll be Airplane.
Airplane, the movie, yes. All right.
Yeah! Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's an easy
You
one.
should have wagered more than $200 because
That's all I had.
Oh, I know, but you could have. I think.
Did I borrowed some off you, Jeff?
Yeah, never mind. Okay, you're right. Okay, Captain Nick, still your turn.
Okay, I'll try something different. Let's go with $300 military aircraft names and numbers.
All right,
This is gonna be
$300.
American stuff.
McDonnell Douglas Phantom II, also known as
the F4.
F4, yeah.
F4. You are
Yes,
correct,
I
sir.
love this game. This is so good.
Yeah.
Okay. You're still your turn, Nick.
All right, let's crank it up to $400 for military aircraft.
Okay, and then I guess we should, Dana, if you know the answer, then like make some kind of a noise like a
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Okay.
I knew
Here we
the
go.
answer on the last one. It just didn't get, I thought he got the first.
Yeah, see, I'm doing this all wrong. Sorry, James. Not its official name, but known to its crew and pilots as the Viper.
Oh, interesting. The Viper. The Viper. Oh, that's a tough one. Because you don't. Oh, I'll go with the A4.
I have no idea.
Correct response, F-16. It's actually the Fighting Falcon is the real name of the F-16.
Yeah, that's Fighting Falcon. Why?
I would call it the Texas Lawn Dart.
That's also another name for it. Okay, let's just do one more, and then we can move on with the feedback.
Commercial plane types, 500.
Okay, here we go. Who is the father of the 747?
Who is the
Donald Duck?
Donald Duck is incorrect. So Nick loses $500.
Boeing.
Wrong. Correct response, Joe Sutter.
Yeah,
He is
I just didn't want to admit to it.
Anyway, a lot. We'll return to the game on a future episode because there are a lot more questions and answers to reveal, and I apologize for screwing it up.
Oh,
now I understand how the thing works.
I'm apologizing for not knowing any answers.
That's all right. We're not going to hold it against
Thank
you.
God,
Especially Republic. I mean, I hear that call sign all the time. I know it's pretty good.
Well, we have some more call signs behind those squares we can tackle on the next show. So
Thank God Miami Rick isn't here. He'd have swiped the floor with us.
all right.
I feel like I'm back in the 30s.
Tony says in the chat room, "You guys suck." Yes, we know we do. Thank you, Tony.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Let's move on with the best part of the show, of course, which means your feedback. Now just imagine that we're playing some feedback music, because I'm going to play it right now.
Captain, incoming message.
All right, let's start off with Richard. He wrote in back in June. Really enjoyed Captain Nick's latest episode of Plain Tales in episode 277, yet another high point of the show. Not sure if you're aware, but there are several modern and ongoing connections between the famous, or he put in parentheses, infamous, R-101 from the story, and a modern hybrid airship, the Airlander. The R-101 was built in the enormous Hangar 1 at Cardington, which until recently was in a very poor state of repair. With the Airlander project in the offing, the hangar was fully restored between 2012 and 2015. There was no other hangar big enough for the Airlander, although if you look at pictures of it in the hangar, it actually appears fairly small, which really reinforces quite how huge the R-101 actually was. There's also another link between the stories and, in a way, APG, with its collection of captains. You may well have heard of Bruce Dickinson, the iconic frontman of British metal group Iron Maiden. When not touring the world with the band, Bruce finds time to run his own commercial aviation company in Cardiff, and also an active B-747 training captain, not to mention the owner and pilot of a replica World War I Fokker DR-1 triplane, a type reputed to be even older than the Mad Dog. What?
Well, that
Older
takes
than
a
the Mad
while.
Dog?
That can't. I want to see proof on that.
I doubt it. Yeah, the original Mad Dog actually had 3 wings too, but they figured out a way to do
They
it.
all fell off.
That's probably true. Bruce is extremely keen on the Airlander project to the extent of investing in it. Plans several epic trips when it starts their flight testing. Recently resumed following damage from a mooring accident is completed. He sees it as an ideal floating work platform. One idea being a fully equipped hospital that could drop into remote places in Africa, for example, work for several days, and then move on to the next place it's required. There's plenty to be found on the web about this aircraft and its progress, so it looks like the airships may be rising once again from that giant womb at Cardington. Am I saying that right, Cardington?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Let's see. For a musical version of the R-101 disaster story so eloquently related by Captain Nick, I can highly recommend Bruce Dickinson's epic and fairly haunting Empire of the Clouds. As a fan of his music, I was also lucky to be flown by him on a special 737 trip to Paris. The intention was for him to take us by road to the actual site of the R-101 mooring post where the disaster happened and where the remains of several of the crew were buried. But on that day, there were various ATC issues, which meant there was no time spare to do so. Thanks for an excellent show. Somehow it still keeps managing to get better each week. Richard Adams. Well, it's thanks to people like you, Richard.
Absolutely. You know, I'd like to see that thing which is being nicknamed the Flying Bum. I'd like to see a stage being suspended from below it, and I'd like to see it flying around the countryside with Iron Maiden on the stage, hanging below the airship, playing heavy metal as they drift around the countryside. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool. And they could be playing, what was the song that he mentioned here? The Empire of the Clouds?
They could be.
Yeah.
There you go.
That would be cool.
I tried to get that on my Amazon Music, but
I don't know if I've ever heard that one of you. Let's see. Let me do a quick search here. Let's see. I'm going to say Google Play. No, I'm not going to do that because it's going to be. They're going to flag me and never mind. Let's don't do that. Forget it. You can look it up yourself, dear listener, and listen to it, which we'll probably all do after the show. This one next, this is specifically to Dana. I fly for Acme Junior. I was deviating weather to Atlanta from the west on July 17th. I'm pretty sure I heard your indistinguishable voice, Dana.
I don't have wait a minute, time out. I don't have an indistinguishable voice or an accent.
No, you sound like everybody.
I sound like just like everybody else.
Yes. Sure. There's no mistaking that accent. Ha ha. Feels good to hear another
like me.
Feels good to hear another APGer successfully fighting the weather into Atlanta. Clear skies, my friend. By the way, I am based in Atlanta. Would love to meet up with you and Jeff or any other APGers for a meetup in Atlanta. I'm a very quick 50-minute commute away. Y'all name the time, schedule permitting, and I'll be there. Clear skies, fellas. And again, that was from Justin. Yeah, we need to have another Atlanta meetup sometime soon.
Yeah, I haven't had an Atlanta trip for ages.
I was going to ask you, Nick, one.
Well, I don't have one next in September, and I'm on standby in October, so I don't know when I'll be. I mean, I could get called out for one. You never know.
Okay. The other day I was landing, I don't know where I was coming in from, doesn't matter. But right behind us was 103 Mike or something like. What do you guys use the alphabetic additions
because
to
at some point on that route there will be an aircraft with a similar call sign, so as to distinguish it. There'll be another 103 somewhere.
I see. Okay. Anyway, that was the 340-600 that you love flying. Landed behind us, and I was able to, pull off and watch the landing of that thing. Very, very nice landing, and a beautiful airplane, really is.
It's a nicely proportioned airplane, I think. They got it right with that one.
I think the shorter versions of the 340 are not that attractive.
No, I agree. And they're a bit like the 380. I think the 380 would have looked lovely if they'd ever got round to building a stretched one, because it looks like a little short, dumpy thing. But I think if you add another 50 meters to it, it'd look quite nice.
Yeah, maybe move the cockpit up to the upper deck.
That cockpit's kind of lost. And
but if you notice the sort of current design tendency is to have the point of the nose low. Both the 7.8 and the 350 have very similar designs. So I don't think they're going to change that anytime soon.
Yep. Well, Justin, keep listening and sending feedback. And if we do have an Atlanta meetup in the future, we'll certainly mention it on the show for sure. Also, follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Slack. Okay.
It's nice to be heard.
It is nice to be heard, isn't it?
Not so much on the show, but at least on the radio. ATC.
And it's nice to be not only heard but listened to as well.
Yeah, no kidding. Of course, I'm only kidding as always.
I'm not. Okay. Tom.
Wow.
It wasn't pointed at you. It was pointed at me in my own personal life.
Okay.
Had nothing to do with you at all, Dana. I was not trying to get a laugh at your expense, for sure. Really. He still thinks I'm joking, but I'm not. Tom continues, or Tom sent us an email. And let's see, Tom Ling. Hi, guys, and the lovely Dr. Steph. I'm a window cleaner at Lincolnshire, England, and have my headphones in most of the time at work. I enjoy listening to all the great aviation podcasts and genuinely look forward to each of yours. I should let Nick finish reading this because obviously if he's in Lincolnshire, England, he probably has a nice English accent.
He probably does. He's probably a very nice bloke.
He says, I have one.
You're not going to let me read it.
No, I just trying to point you where I left off.
I've got it. I have one main question for Captain Nick. Please keep with me. I sometimes work near RF Coningsby and sneak off for a while to watch the aircraft. It's driving my nuts. Why? No, I think you're supposed to write driving me nuts, old chap.
They don't want to hurt. They really don't want to hear about it.
Steph would be falling on the floor at the moment if she was on. It's driving me nuts why I can't work out an engine issue. As far as I know, the hottest part of a turbine, I guess, turbine's life, is at the start when the fuel is pumped, but the airflow is fairly low. Yeah, the temperature does get up a bit during the start cycle. Once the engine reaches idle temps cool, and at half throttle it's even cooler. Not necessarily. The temperature actually rises. You've got to make more heat to generate more power, so the temperature definitely comes up as you throttle the engine up, and the actual hottest temperatures are going to be when you're at full power. So, Captain Nick, and I understand you have flown this aircraft. We're talking about the Tornado here. Why, oh why, does the Tornado sit at the end of the runway, one full cold power for sometimes up to 20-30 seconds before full reheat is engaged and it lumbers down the runway? I know that they can take off without, but it's a heavy old girl. Yeah, I cannot work out why they sit at the engine in full. Sorry, it sit at the end in full cold power. They must be up to temperature, and the engine should settle after a couple of seconds of full cold power? Question mark. So the answer to that is no. They're not necessarily at the right temperature. And the other thing is that on those engines, you need to just note down once you've put full military power in, i.e. cold power, once the temperatures and it's the TBT on these engines has stabilized and the RPM has stabilized, the navigator makes a note of the numbers so that he can tell the engineers after landing as part of an engine monitoring system, because military aircraft don't often record these things themselves. So that's part of it. And the other might be that when you get up to full power, the TBT reaches its limit and then the engine trims back the RPM to maintain that. So you need to make sure that trim is working so you know over temperature the engine. And it shouldn't take that long, 20 to 30 seconds. But perhaps the old mud movers, these are ground attack ones, so they're full of bomber pukes. They're just a bit slow at doing everything. You have to forgive them. They're not fighter pilots. Okay. So that I have actually posed that question on my secret tornado forum, and that's the answer they came up with, because I couldn't remember ever doing that personally. It might be a ground attack version one. Their engines are different to the air defense ones, which have more powerful engines, and I suspect they're probably more flexible. Now the airline question. Are there any turbofan run-up limitations? Well, other than temperature and RPM, really, that's it. And vibration, I guess. I can hear then power up slowly and let it settle and give it full power. Yeah, that's really an asymmetric problem. If you've got an engine out, I mean, Jeff won't suffer this too much because his engines are pretty close to the fuselage, so he doesn't have a huge asymmetric problem. But on an aircraft with the engines out on the wings, if you get one that accelerates faster than the other, you can get quite a large yawing moment, and the airplane might start to turn off the runway as you're starting to accelerate until, of course, the other engine gets up to the same power, because obviously if you get a lot of power on one side, it's going to turn the airplane. So we advance the engines up to a moderate setting to make sure they're right before we advance them then to the takeoff power, and they accelerate that last bit fairly easily and together. So that's the reason for that, so just in case one hangs at idle power. And it's never happened to me for real, but I've had that fault in the simulator, and I tell you, if you don't pick it up very quick, you're straight off the runway. It's that dramatic.
Wow.
So thank you all for your podcast and the enjoyment I've had. Other than that, you're very welcome. And I look forward to sending you some voice feedback. Yeah, and we'd like some pictures. Being a window cleaner, I suspect you have lots of interesting things to report to us. So we'd like to know all about your job as well.
Family show.
Family show. Oh, okay. Just to me then. No, thanks very much indeed, Thomas, for that. That's much appreciated.
Dana, you were going to say something?
No.
Okay. And Captain Nick, we actually do the same thing. Even though you're correct that the engines on our jet are closer to the center line, we still do have a little bit of asymmetric things to worry about.
We call it a bleeding. We call it a bleeding problem.
Yeah. But it's exactly the same thing you're talking about. We want to make sure, and we always put it up to us, so we basically stand the throttles, 12 o'clock, straight up and down. That's usually about where the engines will spool up and stabilize enough. And then once you move it beyond that point, when the engines accelerate, they'll accelerate pretty closely, like that, the same. But we've been using a lot of aftermarket engines in the last year or two, because they're getting harder and harder to find, those old JT8D model engines that we're using on the Mad Dog. And almost every logbook you open up, it says these engines are different, the bleed schedules are different, so they're going to be not quite the same, be careful. And so Dana and I are used to the fact that these things don't spool up evenly anymore. I mean, when they ever do, it's a kind of a surprise. But you want to definitely, you're asking about the N1. We actually are looking at EPR settings, and on the 88, we're looking for 1.4 exhaust pressure ratio on the engines before we basically engage the auto throttle system, and that kind of pushes them up to the takeoff power position. On the MD90, it's 1.2 EPR. I'm not sure exactly how that equates to the N1 settings, but I would imagine they're probably more than 50%, probably 60, 70%. Dana, what would you say?
It's an 88% with a flex, 90 for normal, and 92 for max power.
That's actually at full power. I mean the takeoff power setting, but I'm saying the power setting prior to the final advancing. I don't know.
But, it's about 70%.
It's interesting though what Nick says. It's easy if one or more of those engines on one side accelerate more rapidly than the other side. The reason why I say it's funny is because sometimes you'll be taking the runway. Have you guys ever seen the tire marks on the runway? Sometimes you'll see some tires kind of or like marks laid on the runway surface, and they start going straight and they go off to the side and then back to the center line. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yes, I've seen that.
What happened there? That must have been a fun ride. Anyway, it's probably a result of not synchronized engine acceleration.
Well, and that's kind of interesting. Little tidbit about our airplane. As far as I know, there's a worldwide shortage on the JT8D. They're no longer being manufactured, so that's why we're having to kind of pilfer from other places, and it's becoming even a bigger issue with the reversers, because reversers really are not coming out evenly at all now. Most of the time you pull them up, and Jeff, you've been flying the airplane a long time. I've been flying the airplane a long time, and when you pull the reverses out, you know about what to pull to get the knobs up into the position to get the approximate 1.3 that we're looking for. And you pull it out, and next thing you know, you get about 2.0 EPR on one side and 1.0 on the other side. It's an asymmetric thrust. So it's an interesting topic to be talking about. Spool up times and so forth. But reverse is also, as much of a problem as Nick is talking about with his airplane. If you're on a slippery runway or a wet runway with our airplane, it's as much of a problem with the reverse thrust. If you do not recognize it fast enough, it can pull you off the runway, as was proven up in some New York airport close to the water.
Yes, there was an incident with rudder blanking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Slippery runways.
By very experienced crew members, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Well, I think this might be a good time for us to play this week's installment of that favorite amongst everybody, Plane Tales.
The old pilot's plain tales. No distant lands. There are no distant lands. By Flying the Clipper, the advert read, and Pan American meant it. It was the 1940s, and their fleet of impressively large Boeing 314 Clipper flying boats had truly made long-range passenger travel a reality. It was a giant of an aircraft weighing 40 tons and with a wingspan of over 150 feet, 3/4 of that of a 747. It had a crew of 10, 2 pilots, a radio operator, a navigator, and a flight engineer, with 5 cabin crew to look after the passengers, who traveled in considerable comfort. The maximum number they carried was 72, although in sleeper configuration that was reduced to 40. There were 7 beautifully appointed compartments for the passengers, which included a 14-seat dining room, a lounge, and even a private honeymoon suite near the tail. The 4 Wright twin Cyclone engines were the first in civil use to use 100-octane fuel, and they would carry what was then the largest aircraft in the world, an impressive 3,000 nautical miles. A ticket aboard such an aircraft wasn't cheap. You could have crossed the Atlantic at half the price on Concorde, but the pride of the fleet could take you to such exotic places as Hawaii, South America, the West Indies, Australasia, and such. And Pan Am made as much from carrying mail as they did from their passengers. To become a captain on such an aircraft, one had to be a cut above the rest, as Pan Am only had 9 clippers. With the limited resources available in the remote corners of the world, the skipper had little or no backup and relied entirely on his own skills and that of his crew to complete a round trip that might take days. Such a captain was Bob Ford. Despite the war in Europe, it was business as usual for him as he pushed up the throttles on the California Clipper, and with the sea spray glistening on the sides of the aircraft, he climbed out of San Francisco into the evening sky, bound for Pearl Harbor. The next day was the 3rd of December, and Ford was out on the waves again, but this time surfing on the beautiful beaches of Honolulu, whilst his crew played volleyball. After a day of relaxation, they took off again, stopping at Canton Island, Fiji, and New Caledonia, bound for New Zealand. It was by now the 7th of December, 1941, a date that many know as one that will live in infamy. And as they approached Auckland, the radio operator, Gene Leach, swore out loud. The news of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor came through. The beautiful island that they had left only a few days ago would never be the same again. Bob Ford took the news calmly and asked his radio operator to confirm with the Pan Am station at New Caledonia. When Leach had tuned his set to the right frequency, he heard a message being transmitted on a constant loop. Pearl Harbor attacked. Implement Plan Alpha. The crew looked at each other in confusion until the captain pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket that he had been carrying for some weeks and opened it to read.
To the captain, PAA Flight 6039 and Return Flight 6040 from the Division Manager, Pacific Division. Special instructions to avoid hostile military activity. Pan American Airways has agreed to place its fleet of flying boats at the disposal of the military for whatever logistical or tactical purpose they may deem necessary at such times as hostilities break out between the United States forces and the military forces of the Imperial Japanese government. In the event that you are required to open and read these instructions, you may assume that hostilities have already occurred and that the aircraft under your command represents a strategic military resource which must be protected and secured from falling into enemy hands.
Captain Ford was ordered to take the California Clipper to the nearest Pan Am base unoccupied by the Japanese, doing everything possible to avoid contact with the enemy. An ex-Navy pilot, Ford discussed with his navigator the best route to take to Auckland and told his radio operator to maintain radio silence. He turned out all the aircraft lights and, finally, took a .38 revolver from his flight bag and strapped it onto his waist. A week later, Ford was to be found yet again in the American consulate in Auckland. The consulate was the only route for messages, and it was in turmoil. However, after visiting it every day since landing, they eventually had a message for him. He quickly absorbed the instructions, which read,
Top secret, to Captain Robert Ford, from Chief Flight Operations, Pan American Airways Systems, Chrysler Building, New York. Division plans for November Charlie 18602. Normal return route canceled. Proceed as follows. Strip all company markings, registration numbers, and identifiable insignia from exterior surfaces. Proceed westbound, soonest your discretion, to avoid hostilities and deliver your aircraft to Marine Terminal, LaGuardia Field, New York. Good luck.
Bob Ford was stunned. In one terse message, he'd been asked to do something that had never been achieved before. In the chaos and turmoil of a world war, he was being asked to fly a commercial aircraft west from New Zealand to the United States. He called his crew together and showed them the message, and the enormity of their task started to hit home. When a new route was prepared, there would be months of planning and preparation. The aircraft would be gone over in detail, and refueling ships and stations carrying their special 100-octane fuel would be pre-positioned. Most importantly, they would have maps and charts from which to navigate. They had none of these. Ford set about allocating tasks. He dispatched his navigator to the Auckland Library to try and get maps, atlases, and textbooks about the countries they were due to fly over, while the rest of his crew set about preparing the aircraft. In the evenings, they pored over the maps that they had found, trying to work out the best route. The first part was an easy decision, even if it had risks. They would make their way to Australia, but flying over it meant a long transit over land with no chance of putting down safely if they had a problem. The Clipper could only land on water. After that, there was the difficult decision of either heading directly to Africa or going via Java and India. The direct route was at the limit of their endurance, and if the weather was against them, they would in all likelihood be lost at sea. The other route might allow them to stop at friendly ports, but it would also take them through a war zone. They decided that the long transit direct to Africa was just too risky. So with the prospect of flying through some very unfriendly skies, they continued to get ready with a journey of over 20,000 miles ahead of them. Their preparations were cut drastically short when an urgent message arrived. They needed to head straight to New Caledonia on their way to Australia to evacuate the Pan Am staff and their families there, as the island was in danger of attack. Laden with spare parts from the Auckland station and heavy with fuel, they got airborne the next morning. There hadn't been time to finish stripping the paint, so the California Clipper still sported a large stars and stripes painted on the top of her wings, but their long adventure had begun. The evacuation from New Caledonia went well, and they now sat at Gladstone on the east coast of Australia. Not a drop of 100-octane fuel was available. It was the high-performance fuel that gave them their impressive range, and now they would have to fly on automobile petrol. As they flew the long leg over to Darwin, everyone was trying to work their individual problems. The engineers tinkered to get the best balance of fuel mixture, prop RPM, and manifold pressure for the low-grade fuel they carried, whilst Ford and his navigator studied possible landing sites at their stops. They would often be landing in unsurveyed waters where their huge aircraft could easily be wrecked on a hidden rock, sandbar, or other debris which could rip open the belly of their flying beast. Even the stewards had their problems of just how they were going to feed the crew and their passengers for this long journey. Arriving at Darwin, they found the town in turmoil. There had just been a Japanese air raid, and there was an invasion scare, but to top it all, the first freighter full of beer had just arrived, and the Australians had taken full advantage of its presence. They had the right fuel, but it had to be ferried out to the aircraft in jerry cans, which was a worryingly slow process as it was poured can by can into the Clipper's vast tanks. Tropical rainstorms threatened to contaminate the fuel as it was poured into the open tank inlets, but eventually the job was done in the early hours of the morning. After snatching a few hours of sleep, as the sun rose, they got airborne again. At Surabaya in Indonesia, the Dutch Navy were on edge. Japanese fighters and bombers had attacked almost daily, and now there was a report of a large aircraft approaching. Colonel Kernrad scrambled 3 fighters to intercept. On California Clipper, they watched the fighters bear down on them at speed, knowing that either side in a war might shoot them down out of malice or ignorance. The fighter pilots radioed their report, an unknown flying boat. Kernrad pondered. The safest action was to shoot it down, but then came another call. An American flag is painted on top of the wing. It could be a trick, but Kernrad allowed the aircraft to proceed, with the fighters in escort just in case. After landing, Ford met with the colonel, who told him how lucky he was, as their radio was often out of service, and the area outside the harbor where their Clipper landed was heavily mined. The Dutch did what they could for Ford and his crew, but there was no 100-octane fuel available. Bob Ford knew that running his engines on low-octane fuel meant getting less power, and it would eventually wreck them. They decided to preserve what they could of the good fuel in separate tanks and only use it for takeoff and landings, but they were happy that they had taken on the spare engine parts from Auckland. With the threat to Surabaya, they got airborne as soon as they could for the next 2,500 miles to Trincomalee. 19 hours into the flight, they took their last fix, passing over Sumatra using their crude charts. They must now work from dead reckoning throughout the night to find Trincomalee on the island of Sri Lanka. The engines were violently backfiring on the fuel they'd picked up from Surabaya, with the airframe shaking as a result. They couldn't run them richer or they wouldn't reach their destination, but the cylinder heads were way too hot, dangerously close to the red line. It was going to be a close-run thing between destroying the engines and running out of fuel. As the sun rose, there was low cloud below them, and Ford had to descend to 300 feet below it just in case they missed the Trincomalee as it came up over the horizon. "What's that ahead?" somebody asked. "A whale?" "Submarine," Ford yelled. "Full rich, full power." And he heaved back on the controls, desperately trying to find the cloud again. As they flashed over the sub, they all saw the rising sun painted on the conning tower and the deck crew swinging guns around in their direction. Reaching the low cloud, it was lit up all around them with flashes and explosions, and they held their breaths until at last they were safely out of range. The little corner of the British Empire that was Trincomalee couldn't have been more welcoming, but their credibility was stretched to the limits when Bob Ford reported the Japanese submarine. However, there was an invitation to a dinner party held by Lady Wavell, the wife of General Archibald Wavell, C&C of the British forces in India. It was Christmas Eve when they departed with their tanks topped up with 100 octane, heading for Karachi. However, they hadn't gone more than a few hundred miles before an enormous bang, which almost threw Ford out of his seat, announced the failure of the No. 3 engine. Back at Trincomalee, they sang Christmas songs and raised a toast to the RAF engineers who worked on the problem, and by the next day they waved goodbye to their new friends. Finally, in Karachi, both the crew and the aircraft were showing signs of wear. At least they were in a major city where they could relax and enjoy a hot bath. They spent a well-earned day of relaxation, apart from the engineers who needed the downtime to fix a growing list of problems. With everyone in better spirits, they quickly made Bahrain, where yet again they were forced to take on inferior fuel. However, they nursed their clipper safely to Khartoum, where there was a well-equipped RAF presence who sorted them out with charts, fuels, and supplies for their final leg to the Pan Am outpost at Leopoldville in the Congo. To get airborne, however, they needed a clear 3-mile stretch of the Nile, which took a little finding, but at last they were on their way. It was New Year's Day 1942 when Bob Ford opened up his engines to full power and they raced down the Nile. Easing off the water, they were met with a loud hammering noise as the exhaust stack of the No. 1 engine parted company. They shouted at each other over the din, "Can we make it?" Apart from the exhaust flames licking out across the wing and the noise, they were flying okay, so with a constant fire watch from the observation dome, they set course. Their problems were far from over, but landing on the River Congo joined them up with a company facility, and from there they could rejoin the Pan Am route structure that would take them on to home. There were still many potential disasters that could overtake them, and nearly did, but they safely made Brazil and then turned north for New York. It was on the 6th of January, on a cold morning at LaGuardia's airport tower, when the radio unexpectedly crackled into life.
LaGuardia Tower, this is Pan American Clipper, November Charlie 18602, inbound from Auckland, New Zealand. Due to arrive, Pan American Marine Terminal, LaGuardia, 7 minutes. Over.
The controller's jaw dropped. There was no flight expected, and Pan Am didn't fly from New Zealand to New York.
Sorry? Pan American Clipper 18602? Say again. Confirm your departure point. Over.
Captain Bob Ford himself took the radio and replied,
I say again. Inbound from Auckland, New Zealand, by way of the long way around.
Captain Bob Ford, his crew, and the California Clipper became the first commercial aircraft to fly from New Zealand to New York westbound. But they also became the first to effectively circumnavigate the world. Quite an achievement, but one lost in the news of the war that America had very recently joined. My thanks to Justin Graham for putting me onto the story.
Wow. What a fascinating story.
It's lovely, isn't it? It's a lovely one.
Is there a book written about that or books written about that? I bet there are.
Yes, there is. And I think it's called a very similar name, The Long Way Around, I think it's called.
Wow.
I didn't go from that. I went obviously from a Preseed story, which I found on a blog. And obviously put a little bit of other information that I found elsewhere. But and the lovely thing is that not too many people know that story. So it's a real nice one.
So I heard that voice. It wasn't your voice in the background. I'm thinking, that sounds strangely familiar.
I just thought my American accent was getting a lot better, didn't it?
Okay. And I think maybe you've been hanging around Fred Sampson a little bit too long because it sounded a lot like Fred.
I did collar Fred and ask him to help me out there because I'm not even going to try with a largely American audience. I'm not even going to try to put on an American accent. So he helped me out there, and he's great. It added a little bit extra to that.
An APG community production.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, by the way, while I was listening to, because I put it on the speakers here in my studio, I went and got another one of those bottles that Sam sent me. This one, New Glarus Brewing Company, and I'm enjoying this IPA. Thank you, Sam.
Does it say IIPA? IIPA?
Oh yeah, it does.
Around the neck.
IIPA.
What's that?
It must be. It tastes like an imperial or a double IPA.
Hi, Skipper.
Yeah, kind of tastes a little bit stronger than normal.
An imperial Indian pale ale. I don't know if the Indians will be too pressed.
Oh, Sam's here. Good.
Ah.
Yeah. Earlier today, Sam, I mentioned the gift of the beer, and it is an imperial. Thank you, Sam. And hang on, let me reach behind me.
That's the gin bottle, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry, the wrong one. This is my favorite gin right here.
What's that? Bombay Sapphire. I can
get
some of that from on board. It's pretty cheap.
Is it? Well, it's not cheap over here in the States.
Well, I'll bring you some next time.
Oh, awesome. But anyway, this is what I was actually reaching for. The specially brewed by your friend Phil. The let's see, Deadheading Imperial Stout. Really, really good. It's been a while since I've had a homebrew, and it was nice to kind of taste that homebrew flavor, and a wonderful Imperial Stout. And I love the label. Beautiful job. So anyway.
I'm very generous of you. I wish I'd been part of that. That would have been nice.
Oh, I think that Glenn must have had one of those. I guess it was
got one set me then.
Well, there were only 30-something made, I think.
Oh, well, I'm only one bloke. I don't want all 30 of them.
Yeah. Well, Main Man Micah says he likes Boodles gin. I've never tried Boodles. I'm sure that it's wonderful.
There's a growing number of sort of craft gin.
Boutique gins?
Yeah, exactly right. Distillers. Quite amazing, isn't it?
The one that my wife really likes is Hendrix.
They taste quite different, but I can't stand the stuff. I'm afraid it's like drinking eau de toilette.
Oh, really? No. How do you know? Oh, you mean like the perfume?
Yeah, well, that's what it smells like. I can't get it past my nose. I was playing a drinking game out in Johannesburg one very late night, and the only thing I made me sick was gin and hot water. They made me drink gin and hot water.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
It is. It's awful. It just amplifies the aroma, and I got it down, but it didn't stay down for very long.
Okay, well, let's move on before we all get sick.
Yeah, just the thought of gin makes me sick. I do not like gin.
No,
okay. So, oh well. Sean
Good
writes
bourbon.
in. Bourbon. I mean, I can drink it, but I don't. It's not something that I go. Yeah, I really like to sit down and have. I tried a nice bourbon in Louisville. I figured, when in Rome, but then I realized it wasn't in Rome. So I thought, when in Louisville, go for a good bourbon. And I think it was one of the Maker's Mark's high, what do you call it?
Was it 46? Make it
Yeah,
46?
I think it was. It was pretty good.
Yeah, make it 46 is pretty good.
Anyway, okay, moving on. We could talk. This is not the
A drinking show.
bourbon pilot guy or whatever, or gin pilot, whatever. Let's move on with aviation stuff. This is Sean, and he said, "This is your captain speaking. We're diverting to Montreal because the crapper's full." And then he put a link here to the. It's an Air Canada plane. Sorry, Liz.
Oh, poor Liz. They're getting the hammering out today, aren't they?
It's in seriousness. Is it really that much further to fly from Montreal to Toronto? It's a 1-hour flight between Montreal and let's see, YYZ Toronto for a normally scheduled airline flight. So I'm assuming 30 minutes or so difference at altitude. What would you guys do in a similar situation? I recall Captain Nick saying that he's had issues with fault sensors before. I'm assuming that's the case here. And this is an article from, let me make sure I attribute this correctly, nationalpost.com. When an airliner has to land, it has to land. At least that was a case of an Air Canada Rouge flight from Athens to Toronto that made an emergency diversion to Montreal recently for a surprising reason. Onboard sensors indicated that all the Boeing 767's toilets were full after much of the 10-hour flight, making them unusable for the final portion of the trip. The flight, carrying 240 passengers, was delayed close to 2 hours as staff checked out the problem, which turned out to be a false alarm, a glitch with the lavatory system. But the July 3rd incident highlighted a little-known fact about modern passenger jets. The waste is not jettisoned from on high, threatening those on the ground with falling frozen feces, but kept as extra baggage. Well, I don't know if that's a little-known fact. We all know that.
No, we don't put it in the baggage either. Otherwise, people would get very upset if they opened their suitcase and found that in it.
Yes.
I think you could actually go ahead and say it was full of crap. There's another word we can use that.
This article is just full of crap, isn't it?
Yeah. Full of crap.
But to his point
it's
is
a crappy situation.
It's
just more toilet humor.
So his point, or his the point of sending this in, I think, was his question regarding why did they divert into Montreal when they could have just, or was it the other way around? They, why did they divert to Montreal when they could have gone just a few minutes more to Toronto? Was it really that critical?
I don't know.
There were. I can't use. They were
you
shot.
Did, I think.
I had to stop myself. They were shot out of time.
The
crap out of time. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because once the toilets sort of get to overflowing point, if they're not flushing anymore, which is what happens when the tanks indicate they're full, it kind of gets a bit disgusting. But oh geez, that's a tough one. Unless you've got someone up there who's making a real fuss, and then that then becomes an issue. Because now the safety of the flight might be threatened by a rebellious number of passengers who just insist on landing right now so they can go to the toilet. It becomes a nightmare. But it's difficult. And I think I would have probably carried on, but I would have declared an emergency and carried on.
Yeah, they declared a pan. Believe it or not. No, they really did. It says so in this article. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem, if it was just a sensor and they didn't actually have toilets overflowing,
Well, yeah, but once this, if it's anything like the Airbus sensor, and I don't think it is because it's a Boeing, but when our sensor goes off, indicating they're full, it shuts the system down, so you can't actually flush the toilets anymore.
Well, maybe that is what happened here.
We cured the problem because we had a lot of problems 20 odd years ago when we started with the aircraft. We ended up just disabling the sensors.
There you go. Well, I don't know. It's a mystery to me. It's never happened to me. But I guess they didn't want to be up to their necks in excrement, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I thought all the people on the airplane that think their stuff doesn't stink. You know, all those passengers in the back that sometimes have that attitude, think they're better than everybody else. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that contribution.
Oh, shut up. I'm tired. I'm tired. Leave me alone.
Okay, we'll let it pass. Paul writes.
Oh no, that wasn't another one. Was that
it was an unintentional one?
We'll let it pass. Stop it,
let's see. This is from Paul. This is from Paul. Your last podcast, which was not our last podcast, but it wasn't that long ago, mentioned the St. Albans Cross or Albans Cross. Can someone explain how a device honoring a British person is adopted by an American organization like the Civil Air Patrol? Just curious. It seemed a little strange to me. And so I wasn't sure. So I did a little bit of research about St. Alban and St. Albans Cross and the crest that is worn on the blue berets that the Civil Air Patrol cadets wear. And first of all, let's talk about St. Alban, who is, I think, is it like the what do they call that? The saint for the UK, or one of the he was from somewhere in England.
He's just known as the first martyr.
First martyr of England. Okay.
He's not actually at all well known. We don't recognize him. I'm sure those who have knowledge know of him, but it's not one of those general holidays, for example.
He was a martyr in medieval times. He was put to death for giving a condemned man his cloak, a man who was willing to give everything, including his life, for his fellow man. This is the same feeling and dedication felt by all blue berets, which I guess is the folks that work for the Civil Air Patrol or in the Civil Air Patrol. So they liked what he stood for and what he did with his life. A good example. And anyway, the crest is designed in accordance with the Air Force standard for beret crests using enamel and chrome and brass, and the Civil Air Patrol standard for simplicity in design. The crest is in the shape of a shield representing our mission as protectors of human life, our strength in adverse times, and our military heritage. The crest design is a gold cross superimposed on a dark blue background. The crest is worn on the beret centered over the left eye. Let's see. I thought there was an interesting thing in here about, here we go. Often you will see pictures of old school berets with a silver St. Albans cross on their berets. This is how that came about. When beret candidates first reported in, they were issued their cross to be worn on the front of their fatigue caps, or in earlier years of the program, a French beret that was issued to them. As the encampment progressed, the candidates performed a little ritual. At the end of each day, they would rub the crests on their foreheads. The acid and salt in their sweat would slowly dissolve the cheap gold electroplating on the crests. This ritual was used as a measure of how hard you were working to earn your beret. If you worked hard enough, by the end of the encampment, your beret crest would be blue and silver. So all the gold was worn away. This is a coincidence. The St. Albans Cross is also the emblem for the U.S. Air Force Basic Military Training School, the 37th Training Wing at Lackland. The use of the Albans Cross emulates our endeavor to train new professionals to enter our organization and foster the Air Force spirit for future generations. So anyway, I'll put a link to the Wikipedia article regarding St. Alban. But I think we were talking about the Civil Air Patrol and the Blue Berets, and I mentioned that I met a young man wearing that at Oshkosh, and so that was Paul's response to it. Or actually, that was his question about it. Like, what is the connection there? But just because somebody is from a different part of the world doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use that as an example, a model for your organization in a different country, right?
Yeah,
that's certainly right. Yeah,
certainly.
Okay. Mark writes in quickly using one of the APG apps. The feedback says, symptoms of APG syndrome include reserving seats on a Mad Dog at row 30 in the back. Wow. I think that's more than APG syndrome. That is some kind of a psychological issue, not a medical issue. Because row 30 in the back of a Mad Dog is going to be like between the engines. Not a very pleasant place unless you really like engine noise. Thank you, Mark, for using the feedback feature of the APG app. Let's see, Brett from Ohio also, well, no, he just sent this the normal way, feedback at airlinepilotguy.com. I was bummed to hear about the meetup that happened at Osh with a few of your podcast followers. I was there for 1.5 weeks and kept checking Facebook for some news of a get-together. I'm not a tweeter. Then I heard the first podcast after AirVenture and realized there was a gathering. I'll watch better for something in 2018. I knew there had to be an APG crowd at Osh. So, yeah, need to sign up for Twitter. But my bad. I guess we didn't do a very good job, or I didn't do a good job of keeping Facebook up to. I don't know. Facebook and I just don't really get along. I don't know why, but I just don't feel at home there. I don't know why.
Oh, Jeff, we like you on Facebook.
I know, but it's just like it takes more of an investment for me to do it. Twitter is just easier. It's just like a constant flow of stuff that you don't feel bad if you didn't happen to be there for everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you told me, I would have put it on Facebook for you.
I know. My fault. My bad. Sorry, Brett. Maybe next time we're there, we'll you'll be better informed. Another option is Slack. We did mention the meetup at Osh on Slack. And at the end of the show, Hillel will tell us how to join it. Let's see. Moving on here. I think we're doing okay on time. Getting close to the end. Larry, one of our coffee fund cadre.
Coffee. Is that a mafia? Or?
I don't know. Also known as AP. He's an AP geezer. APG geezer. I subscribe to pilot workshops, and the current topic is go-arounds. I know that a go-around is one of your points of discussion, so I've attached the link to the discussion of go-around and recommend it to the APG community. It starts out by saying, I think the first sign of an unstabilized approach is that little voice in the back of your head telling you something is not right. I'm trying to find the darn go-around sound clip. I just don't know where it is. There it is. Okay. I'm going to reread that sentence. Let's see. It starts out by saying, I think the first sign of an unstabilized approach is that little voice in the back of your head telling you something is not right.
You can always go around if it don't look right coming down. Don't wait until you're sideways, baby, sliding on the ground. You can always
go around. So that's the little voice I have in the back of my head. He said that would make a great song about go around. I think he's using sarcasm there. There's also a comment section with many great contributions to the go around discussion. I'll put the link to this article from Pilot Workshop in the show notes. Wait a minute. Now, why is this here? DFW Skylink. Let me play this and see what this is. I don't know what that is. I know you didn't hear it because I don't have it set up for you to hear stuff that I play on my browser, but it's like a weird little audio file just sitting there. I'm thinking, well, what the heck is that? I think it's the a recording of the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport little autonomous shuttle train system. They call it Skylink.
Odd place for it.
Yeah, I don't know. Larry, why did you do that? Or maybe it wasn't Larry that sent that. No, this is from Larry. I don't know. Okay. Anyway. Trevor gave us some audio feedback. He says, hi, Captain Jeff. Hope you're doing well. Totally envious of your recent trip to Oshkosh. I did pretty much the same Air Venture Whirlwind Tour in 2013. Flew into Madison, drove to Osh, and saw as much as I could see in the precious few hours before I had to head to a meeting in Janesville. As I'm sure you found, a day is certainly not enough time to see everything there is to see. Oh, no. And it was like a half a day for me. And it was just a fraction of everything that you could possibly see at Oshkosh. Anyway, back.
Good.
Pardon?
I'm sorry. I thought you'd finish your statement. I'll finish after you.
Okay. Anyway, when we had our meetup at the Pig and the Pint last October, I was working on finishing my instrument rating. I'm pleased to say that I wrapped it up a few months back and have been enjoying the flexibility and responsibility that comes with being able to fly in less than ideal conditions. During my check ride prep, a buddy and I were talking about how airline pilots maintain currency. And how often is it that you find yourself shooting approaches that count toward currency? I recorded the attached feedback to ask that question. Hope the audio quality is okay. Okay. He said he was on his way to Kansas in the airplane when I recorded it. So let us hear his recording, unless you wanted to say something before we do that, Dana.
I was just going to say, I've been up to Oshkosh 4 times now. And every single time I've even stayed out there and camped out on the airfield. And even with being out there, even if you're there for the week, there's still not enough time to see everything that's there. It's just a matter of getting your interest in what piques your interest in visiting those specific areas, because it's just too big of a show.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hear from Trevor. He took the time to send us some audio feedback. So here we go.
Hey, Captain Jeff and the APG crew. It's Trevor from Colorado. Currently 9,000 feet over eastern Colorado on our way to central Kansas. Just had a quick question regarding maintaining instrument currency, and that is, how often as airline pilots do you find yourselves 015 for 970 going to the simulator in order to get your 6 approaches every 6 months? Or is that even an issue? I'm not sure how the UK regulations are, but would certainly welcome Captain Nick's input as well. And for that matter, Dr. Steph, how often do you find yourself? Are you able to maintain currency in the aircraft itself, or do you go to a Redbird simulator or something along those lines to do that? So it's pretty much clear skies and limited visibility. So this is pretty typical for Colorado weather in the summertime, as far as, there's not really IMC that you'd want to go flying in. So I do a lot of currency stuff in the simulator itself, even though we're on an IFR flight plan today. Doesn't look like we're going to encounter any IMC. So anyhow, keep up the great work. Appreciate all that you do. It's a tremendous asset to be able to have you guys to listen to, and really appreciate everything you do. Until next time, Pilot Trevor signing out.
Thank you, Pilot Trevor. And again, congratulations, by the way, for getting your instrument check ride and your instrument rating. That's quite an accomplishment. So to answer your question, I think that Captain Nick runs into this a little bit more often than Dana and I do, because Dana and I on one trip usually get about the same number of takeoffs and landings that Captain Nick gets in what, like 2 or 3 months?
Oh, yeah, almost certainly. And you're probably, because of that, you're like 100%, 99.9% better at it than I am, I'm sure. But the answer is, when you're doing long haul, you don't get a lot of landings. Yeah, it does become a problem. Funnily enough, reducing the number of pilots on the flight deck, as we've tended to over the years, has helped, because now you're much less likely to have a problem. And of course, being the skipper, I will generally, and this is not through just hogging landings, but if the conditions are bad, then it's always the skipper that will take the responsibility of doing the landing. So from my point of view, it's a matter of keeping my skill levels as high as I can. I'll generally take a landing every trip. So this was one of the rare ones. The last San Francisco I did, I just gave both landings away to my first officers, because I'd just done a New York, and I've got another New York coming up, and I was going to get at least 1 landing on that. But so I average out about 3 landings a month, and that is quite adequate to keep me going. I only need 3 in 90 days, which actually isn't a very high level at all. I need to have done a landing on each type every 45 days. I think that's about right. I might have to check my numbers to see if that is accurate, but that's the kind of level of frequency we're looking at. So it's not particularly difficult. You can do them in the simulator, so long as you're on a simulator that is certified for doing everything on. Some aren't. Some have got relatively poor visuals. Some have got much better and are certified to do the whole 9 yards. So in which case you can do your 3 landings in the sim, and then you don't do another one for quite a while. So it's actually not hard. If I was doing long haul all the time and only getting 2 trips a month, then even that I'd still, be okay. I call New York short haul. Sorry, that's not really short haul. Jeff does short haul.
Yeah. Yeah, we're the ones that do that. Dana, do you ever have any trouble keeping your currency up?
As far as instruments go in landing currency, no. But the one thing that I've thought about in the past and maybe should do a little more thinking about is the summertime flying. When we're flying around during the summertime, well, the daylight hours are so long that how often do you get your 3 takeoff and landings to full stop at nighttime?
I don't think we're required to have any certain number at night for the airlines.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
I think it's just 3 takeoffs and landings. I don't think they specify daylight or night.
Because I know
wrong about that, but
for under the FARs on the part 91 for sure, you have to have 3 takeoff and landings.
So that's the thing that kind of got my attention in Trevor's question, is that he said, like doing approaches that count toward your currency. And I'm thinking, well, I think in part 121, since we're always operating under instrument flight rules, I think that the only basic requirement is the 3 takeoffs and landings every 90 days. And it doesn't matter, because we don't log what kind of approach we flew. The only thing we log are takeoffs and landings. That's it. So it must be different, the instrument rating in the part 91 and part 121.
It is. You have to have, I think it's 6 approaches.
Because I know I heard Steph talk about this, how when she flew down to Greenville, Spartanburg, and she said, she had to go and do another approach, or she elected to do another approach. She said she could use that, to count toward her currency. And I went,
yep.
Oh, that's never something that we even talk about or think about.
Yeah.
In my world.
In GA, you have to have, and that's where the question came in about the nighttime too, is because in GA you have to have 3 takeoff and landings to full stop at night. I think that's within the previous 90 days, and this is I'm jogging my brain. In the instrument approaches, I think it's 6 within the past 90, or maybe it's 6 months. I don't remember, but you have to have either actual logged or simulated, so you can have somebody that's a pilot sit in the other seat while you do the approaches, so it can be simulated as well.
I know that at our airline, the long haul boys and girls are always seemingly, not arguing, but fighting over, getting the landing, getting the takeoff, that kind of thing, to keep their 90-day currencies. And if they don't, then as Captain Nick mentioned, they can just make a quick trip over to the simulator and knock it out in a sim period, and then they're good for another 90 days. So anyway, thanks again, Trevor, for sending in the audio feedback. It was kind of cool hearing all that radio comm in the background. That was neat. Let's see. We want to make sure we do this one on today's episode because it's an interesting question from Andrea. Excuse me. The beer's talking. Let's see. Hello, APG community. First of all, great podcast. I am enjoying every episode. Please keep it up. I have a question for you. I recently got the chance to visit the cockpit of a 747 of a European legacy carrier after a transatlantic flight and talk to the pilot and his 2 officers. Being a researcher in fluid dynamics, I asked them about the Reynolds number that the main wing was at during cruise. To my astonishment, they did not know and hadn't heard of the Reynolds number since flight training. I tried asking more aerodynamics questions, but got more or less the same results. I sure didn't want to embarrass those pilots. I had just assumed that they would be very well versed in aerodynamics. So here's my question to you guys. Do you know what Reynolds number you are flying at? And on a more serious note, how much aerodynamics is taught at flight school? Is that something you learn once and then forget about? Does it play any role in your training, and do you have to keep current on it? Again, thanks for your great podcast. Be safe, Andrea. Okay, Nick, what's the Reynolds number for your airplane at cruise?
Well, it's an interesting one because Reynolds is a dimensionless quantity. So it's pretty much a meaningless number to us in the practical sense. So the safe answer is I haven't a clue, and neither will any pilot that I know of, unless he happens to have a degree in fluid dynamics or something similar, such as Andre, and has taken the bother to sit down and work it out, because it has no practical value to us, Andre, when we're actually flying an aircraft. I mean, we touched on it, pardon me, and I taught flying instructors about Reynolds and, his experiments. He was what we fondly in the Air Force called a Victorian sewage engineer, who was very interested in generating a smooth flow through the sewage pipes that were being built under the streets of London. And he wanted to try and work out which pipes would be the best to get a nice constant and smooth flow. And his problem was, or not his problem, but what he was investigating was when a smooth flow in a pipe or across a wing or across a flat surface, which we call laminar flow, breaks into a turbulent and chaotic flow, which obviously slows up forward progress if you're trying to get rid of your poo. We've had this is a bit of a pooey program. This
really is a crappy show, isn't it?
So, I mean, Reynolds number is a ratio of inertial forces compared with viscous forces. On a wing, we need to know the point at which the airflow on our wing is relatively smooth, and the point at which it moves into turbulence. But only really when we're at very high angles of attack, because if that point of that transition to turbulence moves too far up the wing, eventually the amount of wing that is still producing lift, the area reduces to such a small amount that will no longer support the weight of the aircraft and will effectively stall the aircraft. So we're intimately conscious of our stalling angle if we've got angle of attack indicators, and a lot of aircraft do, or certainly the speed that at a certain weight will give us that stalling angle of attack. So that is, I hear a sort of toilet flushing in the background.
It wasn't my toilet. Dana, what are you doing?
I'm sitting right here minding my own business.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I'm afraid what Reynolds did, and I mean, if you can probably sit and work it out if you were clever enough at maths, and so Reynolds number is the density multiplied by that's nu, which is the velocity of the fluid, over mu, which is the dynamic viscosity of the fluid, which is equal to nu times the characteristic L, the characteristic of linear dimension over the kinematic viscosity of the fluid. Now, if you knew all those, you could probably work it out, and I'm sure Andre is clever enough to do that. And I'd love to know what his calculations would give my 340. But even if he gave me the number, it really is of no practical use to me. I mean, for those aerodynamicists and aircraft engineers that scale up models, and this is really, I think, where Reynolds' number is used a lot in the aviation industry, is that it allows you to test scale aircraft and then use that the effects of scale aircraft and expand them to what a real size aircraft would do by applying Reynolds theories, then that is very useful to you. But I'm afraid once the aircraft's been built, we're trolling around in it. It's really just an academic number that's, I'm afraid, Andre, not going to have great deal of interest to us. As regards general aerodynamics, most of us understand, about lift and drag and how it's created and where they come from and why we need to put flaps and slats down to change the shape, how what factors affect lift over the wing. So I expect Dana will know that the a lift is half rho v squared s, so that he can apply all those factors when he's thinking about making an approach and what will affect his approach. But quite honestly, so many of those are fixed, like the wing area. You can't change that really except by putting out flaps and increasing it. You can't do much about the density of the air. That's going to be pretty much what you're given when you come to land. So many of these factors are outside our control. We tend to deal with the more realistic aspects of keeping the right speed, keeping the right angle of attack, and making sure we put the gear down. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but the academic side is, to a certain extent, just out there to give us an interest, not to necessarily be applied every day.
Well, of course, as everyone knows, a vortex street can occur around cylinders and spheres for any fluid cylinder size and fluid speed, provided that the flow has a Reynolds number between roughly 40 and 1,000.
Good.
Yeah. I just read that from the Wikipedia article on Reynolds number.
Oh, you weren't cheating, were you?
Zero. Well, yeah, like you had that formula in your head about the Reynolds number, new Lima over.
He cheated too.
Liar.
But okay. I knew CL is half rho v squared s. I mean,
did you guys do that?
I've got loads of FAA manuals in my house. When I was learning to become a flight instructor, and this Reynolds theory I've never heard of, actually, because I'm not a military guy. But
that has nothing to do with the military. It's all just aerodynamics and flow, really more fluid dynamics, but which is also
and I'm going back, and I went to school for aviation management and flying and everything else, and maybe it was mentioned way back when, but the LD max diagram is really what we, if you guys know what I'm talking about, the LD max, correct?
Oh yeah,
it's over drag, and your parasite induced drag and total drag, and where your stall and airspeed. It's basically a diagram that will show you where, based on your weight versus your speed versus your thrust, at which point the aircraft will be stalling. And that's more of what I'm concerned about, is if I'm overloading the aircraft, or if I don't have enough airspeed, if I have too much drag or not enough lift, at what point is my critical wing going to be critical? So in none of the FAA training materials does it ever mention the Reynolds.
Okay, so you know what? We probably could have saved about 10 minutes by just saying to your question, Andrea, no, we do not know what the Reynolds number is that we're flying at, because it's not important.
But this is an aviation show, and we're talking about it.
Yeah, well, I think we've lost the last 3 or 4 people that were listening to the show in the last few minutes.
Hey, look, Jeff, one day they may put a Reynolds number gauge in the cockpit, in which case we'll all go, what's that for?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so aerodynamics is something that you learn very early on, and honestly, you don't really go into a lot of depth in this kind of thing, just the basics of aerodynamics. And unless you're like an aerodynamics, aerodynamic engineering kind of a major, and you get into depth on that, but that's it. So we deal in practicalities and, pragmatic issues, and not theoretical. So yeah, we're the operators, not the scientists. So
are you saying that wasted people's time?
I'm saying
Yes,
that
you
and Captain Nick answering the question just wasted everybody's time.
I just thought he was a nice bloke, and it was an interesting question.
Yeah, it isn't it? Well,
I have this nice book with all the tabs on it, so that I know where everything is. And nothing.
Okay, well, I think that the more important thing to talk about right now is the fact that we really appreciate everybody listening to the show and subscribing to the podcast via iTunes and Stitcher and TuneIn and all those great places that you can listen to great podcasts. And we're on social media. Captain Nick is going to tell us about how you can follow the crew and the community on social media.
Well, you can find us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Airline Pilot Guy, or you can get us on Twitter under the handle at APG Crew.
Yes. And Hillel. Hillel, come on out.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and plain tales topics. We plan meetups and events. To get into the Slack team, please send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @hi11e1, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel @hi11e1, and see you in Slack.
Thank you. All right, there you go. Join up Slack, contact Hillel, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and again, our all-important Airline Pilot Guide website where you can learn about the community, the show, the crew, ways you can contribute financially to the coffee fund, and information about how you can get your very own smartphone app, either on the Android platform or the iOS, the Apple platform. Anything else before we end the show?
No, you're going to do a bit of a special with Steph coming up, aren't you?
Well, we might be, yeah. Just a quick aside for those of you, and many of you listening to the show, also listen to another great podcast that Pilot Pip puts out there. Pilot Pip did in his, I believe it was his most recent show, talked about the solar eclipse, which is going to occur here in the U.S. on Monday, the 21st, about 2:30 in the afternoon, at least over here in the southeastern United States. And it will be in a different time, I'm sure, for other parts of the country. And he's kind of organized a little bit of a group to get together on a lake in South Carolina, which just happens to be right on the center line of the total eclipse. And so Dr. Steph's going to be there, Pilot Pip, Matt, Dispatcher Mike, and probably forgetting some other people that are going to be there as well. But anyway, there's going to be a little group of us there, APG community, watching the eclipse, and families. And I'm going to take my recording equipment with me, and I'm sure that Dispatcher Mike will as well, because
you're going to record the eclipse. I didn't know.
We're going to be very, very quiet. Now I would imagine we're probably going to do kind of some kind of a little recording there for people.
That is poor Jeff.
I know.
I just want to know what noise the sun makes when it goes out.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised. Anyway, so that'll be something extra. Don't worry, if you're a patron of the show, it won't be charged. It will just be something extra that we'll just get together, and it'll be very casual, and we'll talk about what's going on there, and maybe even try to knock out some of this feedback so we can get that down to a reasonable number. And
so at least you don't have to do Reynolds number now.
Nope, thank goodness we got rid of that one.
Wow.
Okay, and until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care. God bless.
Yeah, bye, everybody.
Have a great afternoon, a great evening, a great morning, wherever you are.
Paul
right.
Reynolds. He was such a good sewage engineer as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think is best.
Speaking of storage engineer, I'm gonna actually tell you guys I'm gonna have to check out. So
well, please do get an app before you go out and watch a movie, because for sure you're not going to remember any of it.
We're going to watch Elvis tonight at the
Elvis. I thought he was dead.
I thought he died in 1977.
Yes, he did, but
on the crapper, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Oh, another connection to today's show. It all comes
dear.
Basically
at the oh my God, what's the name of that amphitheater?
Lakewood?
No, the one
Chastain.
Chastain, yeah. Got invited last night by a friend of mine. So
nice.
Gonna go watch Elvis impersonators do their thing, or whatever it's gonna be. But so
okay. Well, hey, you need to take a nap, because he said he was falling asleep during the show.
Yeah, I know.
I was nodding off.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Okay, go.
I'm gone.
All right.
Good chatting, guys. Bye.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I wonder what the snoring noise was over in the middle of Plain Tales.
Well, they were telling me, Sam is in the chat room now, and he, as you know, and he said, "Yeah, Jeff, that IPA, that IIPA that you're drinking has 9% alcohol."
Oh my God!
I went, no wonder I'm feeling a little loopy.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's like, that's like
dang.
2 of the normal. That's impressive. Yeah. Does it taste strong, or
it does? It Yeah, Steph and I have talked about this before. This kind of style, it's just almost too much. Like the alcohol almost has a flavor of its own, and I prefer the little bit. I prefer the mid-level, IPA strengths, about 6 to 7.5. My favorite IPA, High Lie, is a 7.5, but most of them are around 6, 7, 6 to 6.7, 6.5.
Yeah, which is actually still quite strong compared with a lot of beers, which are usually around 4%.
Yeah, your standard. Here's an interesting thing a lot of people don't know. That they always think that the darker, stronger flavor to beer, the more alcohol it has. But your typical Guinness has about the same, or actually less than a Budweiser as far as alcohol by volume. But they look at you like, what? That can't be right.
Yeah.
And
it actually has more
the flavor.
Yeah, it has less calories than the equivalent amount of white wine.
Wow, there you go. That's why Guinness is good for you, right?
Supposedly,
That's the same thing with coffee. A lot of people are kind of astonished. They go, I really need some caffeine, so I'm going to get some kind of an espresso drink. Well, the espresso drinks have less caffeine than a drip coffee or a percolated coffee or whatever.
That's amazing. No, I didn't know that.
Yep. But people, again, associate, because espresso has such a strong flavor, that must mean that it has a lot more caffeine. And actually, it's the opposite. The stronger the flavor, the darker a bean is roasted, the more caffeine is denatured. The shorter the brew, in other words, the espresso under very high pressure very, very quickly, it doesn't pick up as much caffeine in the process.
Interesting.
So, and it also has something to do with the type of bean, and the kind of beans that they use for espresso roast or espresso drinks is the what do you call it? The starts with an A. There's a Robusto and the other kind of bean that most good coffee is made from, the smaller bean, and
something
Arabica. Yes,
there you go.
Those Arabica beans have less caffeine than the Robusto beans, which are the ones that they use for cheaper coffees and the kind of coffee that you have in the can ground. So lighter roast, Robusta bean, drip or percolated coffee is going to have the most caffeine. So if you want the most caffeine for your buck at Starbucks or whatever coffee place, go for the drip roast, the regular coffee, and the lightest roast you can get. There's your tip from the APG.
There you go.
So, thank you, Don Arabica. Yeah. So the as I said, we're gonna. I really didn't know if we would talk about the lake eclipse thing or not on the show, but yeah, as I said, several of us are getting together, and we're gonna kind of hang out at the lake and hopefully get a good shot of the eclipse, because you don't know, what the weather is going to be like, but I'm hoping it'll be clear skies.
Well, even if it's not, it goes dark.
Yeah,
which
you're not going to be
kind
able
of
to
is
tell
quite
it.
impressive. I mean, you're sitting there
You'll
on the
know,
lake and you go, "Oh, it's gone dark. What's going on?"
Yeah, is it night already?
Then it gets light again. You go, "Oh,
You drink a lot of the same thing happened.
Did I fall asleep?" Or you can just sit here in the UK and shut your eyes for 2 minutes.
I wonder what they're experiencing over there. Oh, okay, I can simulate it. In a very dark room, turn off the lights. Of course, when it's happening over here, it'll almost be dark over there, I would imagine, right? At 7:30 your time? No, probably still light over there.
Yeah, so yeah. It's interesting. The one they had in the UK a few years back, the one that got me was all the birds stopped singing, because there are a lot of songbirds in my garden, and everything goes terribly quiet, and you think, well, that's really weird. What's happened? And then it twigged that the birds have stopped singing. So
interesting.
Yeah,
that's kind of like the 9/11 thing in the U.S. when all basically all flying stopped. You wouldn't think that you would notice it, but everything was eerily silent. I guess it's like noises you hear in the background all the time, and you just kind of take for granted they're going to be there. But then it was noticeable when you'd walk outside and you didn't hear any of that. You still heard cars driving around and everything else, but I guess it's kind of the same.
It's a bit like when Dana mutes his mic.
Yeah. Or when Steph muted her microphone earlier today because she was in a noisy environment.
That would have been a fairer comment.
Yeah, because that was
there's a lot of background from that.
That was interesting before the show, before we started recording, and she was like near some kind of an outdoor air conditioning compressor, and then she put it on mute, and I was looking at another window, and I thought, oh no, the feed just went down. Something,
something dreadful's
messed up. It's terrible happened again. But it was just Steph muting her microphone. Anyway.
There you go. Well, we did a reasonable amount, considering how much we had to cover at the beginning of the show. We got through quite a bit.
I think so too. Hey, Landon, we talked about you at the beginning of the show.
Landon, yeah, hi. How's it going? From the left coast. Very good.
Yeah, we talked about the meetup and you and your wife, or your wife to be, I guess.
Beyonce, yes, absolutely.
And, yeah.
And don't look back on the comments, because I was mentioning that Natasha didn't look quite as enamored with the meetup as you did, and I was just thinking, for your future marriage, you might want to leave her. No, that's very rude thing for me to say. Leave her at home. No, you might not want to make too big a thing of the fact that you're going off to a meetup.
Well, you know what? I mean, I think what he did was a very, very fair thing, because it was just exposure to what the future may hold.
Yeah, I could almost see her recalibrating her brain. Is life going to be like this? He's going to spend his afternoons talking to all these aviation idiots.
That was like Dr. John Brown's son said, when we did the meetup in Columbus. He said, "Well, you aviation geeks certainly are passionate." That's all he had to say.
Yeah, that's a kind of backhanded compliment. Isn't it?
Then he handed the microphone to somebody else. Who
can blame him?
Yeah.
But that was a very cool meetup. It was actually quite a small place. We were lucky to get a table, and I thought the audio was going to be appalling, because I only had a condenser mic, and it didn't pick up too much background, so that was very good. That GarageBand on the iPad works quite well, because it has a noise gate. So it could keep out quite a lot. So
I know that was in two parts. The first part, I guess there probably weren't as many people there at the time, and the background noise wasn't that bad. But the second half of that audio, then it just seemed like there was a lot more noise in the background.
Yeah, that was like 2 hours later. So I think most of the noise was actually coming from the APG on the table right next door.
A little bit more to drink, a little bit louder.
Yeah, the volume control was got a bit sloppy by then. You turn the knob and you can't turn it down, and yeah.
So I guess basically the theme for the show today was
yes, good old Thomas Crapper.
How do you spell that?
CRA. Oh, that's a good point. I don't know. You'd have to look it up. It's got a P in there. I don't know how many P's. I'm not very good at double letters.
There's P in there, yes, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Oh, that's awful, Jeff.
I know.
Yes, there is.
I had so many great pieces of audio feedback that I was going to play on the show today. It just ran out of time. I was a little bit too optimistic when I started filling this feedback folder, because I think I had right now it says 26. We normally get to about 12 to 15 at the most. So,
yeah, I think if you can fit some in on a little extra show.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that. And I don't know, maybe even, I don't know, we'll see. But I think Miss Jennifer is heading down to Charlotte tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. And Steph said something about getting together with her. And I said, maybe the three of us could do something, or maybe if you're around, Nick, but it'll be probably late for you. We can do some kind of a little mini recording. Again, just not a regular show, just something special for the community.
I have got a simulator on Sunday and one on Monday, and they're both early morning ones. So I won't be able to do a stay up. So you guys carry on. And then on Tuesday, I'm out to JFK. I think that's Grandma's house.
Okay.
And
that's not good.
then I've got a few days off, and then I've got a San Fran. And I'm not allowed to say that because that upsets the East Coasters. A San Francisco.
Oh, you mean Frisco?
Frisco. Yeah, that's probably worse.
That's worse.
Yeah.
San Fran is bad, but Frisco is worse.
Yeah. Then I got a Newark, and then I've managed to swap my Lagos. That's how you pronounce it, by the way.
Lagos.
For another JFK. So, and then I'm on holiday in Italy.
Very nice. Toward the
And
latter part of the
I'll
month.
be able to use my new microphone as of the 9th of September. So I'm just trying to work out when
lovely.
Until then, I'm stuck with this, which is working fine. Don't get me
No, it
wrong.
works
I
fine.
can't wait to hear my tones become all honeyed.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
Smooth and dulcet.
I love this microphone. It really is nice. And I think your voice is very similar, so you'll enjoy it as well.
Well, that's what people say. I didn't have a chance to test it. B&H Photo got a sound room, so I said, "Oh, great! Can I go in there and try the PR40?" Oh, we haven't got that one. Oh, thanks. Okay. There you go. But thanks so much for that link, by the way, to the interview with Mr. Heil himself. What a great bloke! I was
he's
I
amazing
assumed he was some really boring dude, but the fact that he'd hung out with Peter Frampton and Joe Walsh, I was going, wow, he was the sound engineer for those blokes. That's on all their live shows and all this kind of. God, no wonder he knows such a lot about mics as well as being an amazing radio ham.
Yeah,
So,
he's also, also the fact that he was like the chief organist at the Fox Theater in downtown St. Louis. The big organ. That's how he kind of got started.
We're going to start talking about big organs now. Oh,
yeah,
come.
Well, apparently he's played with some big organs. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, he did mention that's why he didn't really finish his schooling because he was too busy, earning some dollars playing these organs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going, well, it doesn't seem to have done you any harm, Mr. Heil. You've got a great business there, and you're a really clever chap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a great. Sent it to Micah as well, and he enjoyed watching it as well. I knew he'd be interested in it. So I'm on vacation next week. So
all right.
We'll be gone Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but latter part of the week. When are you leaving on your trip next week?
I'm heading up to New York on the 22nd. I'll be out there on the 23rd. Come home on the 24th.
Okay. I guess if you were able to find a place with good internet, we could record while you were there on the Wednesday, the 23rd.
Yeah, that's definitely. Mind you, I can. As I discovered on my last trip to Grandma's house, I was in a room there where I was getting 120 down and 56 up.
What?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going, what? What's going on? This is really weird.
Wow.
It was fantastic, but we
Get that
were
room
actually.
again.
Yeah. I bet I could remember which one, but yeah. I mean, I think it depends where I am in the hotel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll pencil that in as a possibility for recording next week. And then the final week of the month, I may or may not be on a trip. I don't have anything scheduled right now, but I do need to pick up some more flying. So
right,
we'll have to play that one by ear.
Well, I'll be on days off, so I can fit in as and when. And
you wouldn't happen to be in Des Moines, Iowa, or Canton, Akron, Ohio, or Sarasota, Florida, the 4th through the 7th. No, I'm just was a
I am in San
question.
Francisco. Is that any good?
Yeah, that's good, but I'm not going to be there.
Well, bid for a San Francisco.
And I tried to bid for a trip the following week because Nev is going to be in Dulles, Fairfax, Virginia. But I didn't get the trip that I was hoping to get. I got a Houston Little Rock trip that week. So I'm trying
there Little Rocks in Houston.
I'm going to contact the guy that has the trip that I was trying to get and see if he'd be willing to swap with me. Probably not, but we'll see.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, yeah. So, folks, just stay woke, stay subscribed and keep watching and all that kind of stuff, and you'll know when we're going to be doing the next.
These guys are suckers for punishment, so I think the chat room will still be around for a bit longer.
Yeah, they're suckers for punishment. You're right.
Yeah, they are. As for the general public, well, we're not sure.
Yeah, Micah. I was actually I bid for a couple trips in Portland. I don't know if they were first choice or second choice or whatever, but I didn't get any. So, but I did look at a couple trips that had Portland, Maine, in them. But oh well, looks like that didn't happen.
Lane's invited us to come to Seattle to see the underground tour and learn all about Thomas Crapper. Only the Boeings go to Seattle in my company, Lane, so they know all about crap things. So, you know, they don't need to learn more. They've been inculcated.
The Seattle Underground tour is just awesome. That was one of the best tours I've ever gone to, Lane.
Excellent.
Yep. And I think it has a lot to do with your tour guide, because we had a really good one, or I did. I was just on a layover and did the tour, and that's where I learned that in Portland they have the highest. I mean, in Seattle, they have the highest per capita suicide rate in the country. They have the highest per capita coffee consumption in the United States. And they also have the lowest per capita participation in religion. So I don't know if all those correlate or not.
That's interesting. No, I suppose something's got to do with the amount of sunlight.
Yeah, I think it does. It does. But it's an interesting thing about Seattle. They don't want you to know this. Lane knows this, that they kind of give you the impression that it's just always just dreary, like year round, but it's not true. I've been to Seattle many, many times in my other airplanes, and most of the time it was really nice weather. So they don't want all the Californians moving up there, and I don't blame them. Sorry, those of you in the chat room right now and watching the video that are Californians, but I'm a Californian too, so I can say it. But
you're quite right. And in answer to Sam, yes, I agree. It was odd that B&H Photo didn't have a PR40. They didn't seem to have much Heil stuff. I wonder if they're just not really a major stockist. So
I think that they're not as big a player as Electro Voice and of course the super high end Neumanns. Those things start at like $1,000 and up, and much up.
Well, they had some crappy mics in there as well.
Did they? Well, I don't know why. Maybe it's just the Heil production. They just don't have as many, products out there. I don't know. Or maybe they don't get as much money, maybe, as they do from the other microphone products.
Funny enough, I noticed that the Heils in the UK are just about the same price as in the States.
That's interesting. You'd think that
that's what I thought. I mean, I got it over there because I was out there, and I thought this is probably easier. I thought I saved quite a lot of money, but nope, no, I didn't save much at all.
Huh?
That was one as I had New York tax onto it, plus everything else, plus tipping the server and all that crap.
Tipping the server?
I'm only joking.
Huh?
Just a small dig at I have so many things, because you look at the prices, that's a great price, and then when you actually get to pay it, you go, "What? Where did all this come from?"
I know.
All snuck in the back door.
That's like you rent a car and you go, "Wow, I got a great deal. I got them, like for $15 a day," and then when you walk out of there, it's $45 a day. What? What's all that? Airport taxes and fees and everything else. I'm like, well, that's crap.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Yeah, I know. It all just gets added on. And there's no way you can avoid it either. It just happens.
Yeah. I know.
Still.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah, what was I going to say? I guess tomorrow I'll spend my time, tonight and tomorrow editing this show, and then hopefully have it out by sometime afternoon tomorrow night, I hope.
That'd be brilliant.
And then on Saturday, I'm going to probably be spending most of the day smoking stuff in the Big Green Egg for our little get-together in Lake Kiowee. Kiowee, some Indian name.
Sounds very nice. Now you're going to float out onto a dinghy. Or
I don't know. I don't know
or
if anybody's
something.
ready to see me
An
in my
airbed.
bathing suit, so I'll probably just stay on shore with
I
full
just
clothes.
I just have this image in my brain of a big long lead going out to you on an airbed, floating in the middle with all your mixers and microphones, and
that will not be happening. And a long extension cord.
A long extension cord. Yep. Yeah, all
Nope.
these
I don't know why
volts
you have
flying
that
around.
crazy image in your mind, but it's not going to happen. I can guarantee that.
Oh, damn.
But I'm glad I have this new XR18 mixer because it has, I can get this. If I needed to, I can connect 16 microphones.
Woo! Now, can you actually control the input from me, for example? Am I a separate input into this machine?
The input from you into my mixer is from the MacBook Pro and the Chrome browser.
Okay, so that's a single input. So still Dana and I are just one
Yeah.
input.
You guys are, whoever's on the Hangout coming in, that's on one input, on one track.
Right.
And then the iPad I'm using for the sound effects is on a separate input and subsequent track on my recorder. And then my channel, my microphone is on a separate input and separate track. So now I can go and equalize volumes and like there were a couple times in the show where I know that you guys were probably pulling your headphones off because the noise was so loud, but I'll be able to get everything to a good volume because that'll be its own track. So that's going to be nice.
Excellent. Excellent.
But-
So when we have a 16 mic panel.
Yeah, I hope I never have a 16 mic panel. But like doing those things that we do at Farnborough and Wings Over Pittsburgh. This actual this mixer could have handled all that.
Oh wow!
Without a problem.
I don't want to save having to rent in the future.
Yeah. Although it was only $50 for that big giant sound craft or whatever.
Wow.
It was not a lot of money that we to rent the stuff. And then of course in Farnborough, I think that was Nev's personal mixing board. So obviously didn't cost us anything there either.
Cool.
But yeah, but I'm saying it could, I could use it for that. And this weekend or early next week, depending on how many people want to have a microphone in their hand and talk stuff, we'll be able to accommodate all that.
Oh, excellent. Mayman Micah has just told me that in November, Matt Smith is going to be in New York. And Mayman is going to try and do a meetup with him and his Klingon brother, Eric.
Oh.
Like,
I don't think that's Klingon.
Kreplach.
Brother.
I'm
Eric.
sure that's Klingon.
Oh, Tanya. Yeah.
Tanya and Colonel Jeff. Oh, excellent.
Nice.
So,
when? Do you have dates?
Yeah. Send me dates because I could bid for a trip. Because I get in there all the time. So
I'll bid for November at the beginning of or mid-September.
Now, whereabouts in New York? You're going to be in Manhattan or on the west or the south side or the north side? Because I've got 3 different hotels.
Now we
could sort of.
Now we wait.
Yeah. I can't believe we got a game show in this as well today. That was so funny.
Didn't go very well.
Well, next time
work on that.
No, we need to zero the scores and start again, even though I'm winning.
Actually, I think by the end of it, all those wrong answers zeroed you out.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, how much?
I think
I
so.
don't know this game show at all. How much do you get for a wrong answer? Surely you just.
What's funny about that is when I was clicking the thing, I thought that the area that I was clicking was just like a general area to click for team 1 and team 2. I didn't realize that you had to actually click the check mark would add money and the X would subtract money. I didn't realize it worked in that way. So now I know.
Okay. Matt flies in on the 4th and leaves on the 12th, staying Manhattan. Okay, well, that gives me a fairly good window to get a trip.
Yeah. We're thinking at the end of the week. Okay, let me look at November.
I can't bid till September, October.
The end of which week? Those are 2 weeks. 4th through the 12th. That's Wednesday through Friday of the next week, or Thursday of the next week. So you're saying maybe the end of the first week, main man Micah? Maybe like the 6th, 7th?
Yeah, just give me an actual date, because can only be out there for like one day. So
Oh, wait a minute. I'm looking at October. You said November.
End of the 12th.
Never mind. Okay, I see now. 4th. Disregard the end of the week. So it'll be like the
And I
9th, 10th,
can't-
11th. Oh, Veterans
I
Day.
can't bid for a month for that trip, so I need a reminder in a month's time, Micah. Just before.
Well, I'm going to put it on the calendar here, although that doesn't guarantee that I'll see it. 4th. Let's see. Matt in USA. Oh, NYC. And then APG calendar and edit event 4th through the 12th, I think you said. Okay, save. Boom. Now, if I just remember to look at my calendar before I bid, we'll be good.
Okay, I need to dash to the loo, and our listeners are probably falling asleep
Wearied.
listening to us blather on.
Yes. All right, let's stop this broadcast.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging with us. And as I said, in the next few days, next 1 to 5 days, perhaps there will be some extra treats from the APG. So look forward to seeing you. Toodles.
Bye, everybody.